Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Val Verde Broadcasting. Welcome back to another fresh out of the box. We've broken the seal. There's that weird smell of sort of turkey ham emanating.
Kind of like the factory's full of farts.
That's the one. The weird packaged fresh with fart smell. On today's new What Is and commentary thing. Hello, welcome. My name's Duncan Casey. I am a professional actor and idiot. And as always, my co-host Richard Jackson is here. What does videography?
Flesh machine, flesh robot.
Flesh robot. What will turn up?
A nervous system piloting a meat suit.
But very good at videography. So
yeah, sure. Why not? Why not?
Why not? Today's audio delight is on 1989's. Why do people use the possessive when they talk about the year that a film came out? I don't really understand that. 1989
belongs to the year. Yeah.
I guess so. But
Tim Burton's Batman is referred to as Batman apostrophe 89.
Indeed.
Or sometimes Batman 89. The best Batman film according to everyone.
Well,
I'm gonna make lots of friends today.
I think your wide derision of this film is
It's well known. It's well known. Yeah.
But yeah. So okay, if you're going to watch along, please arrange your steam-powered DVD to the beginning. Well, people overcomplicate this as well. I listen to a podcast where they're like, "Oh, right, we're going to get it." So when you hear the MGM line roar, press pause, and then we're going to tell you on the second roar to press play again. And it's like, right?
No, but people do that. People do that.
Doesn't really matter, does it? Anyway, get ready. I'm staring at a black screen right now. Hit play upon the now. Now.
There you go.
There we go.
I used to think that when we first started doing these, kind of like we should really give a time code and blah, blah, blah. And it turns out quite a lot of people just listen to these in the gym or when they're out driving or whatever. And
they listen along, or if they play it with us. You know, it doesn't have to be bang on the time code, and also it goes out of sync anyway because of the frame rate.
Probably not going to be a lot of scene by scene commentary in this anyway. Yeah. So Tim Burton's Batman '89, produced by John Peters, and
the hair,
and apparently was married to Pamela Anderson for 12 days until last week. Which is just a strange bit of side stuff.
Also, R.I.P. Kirk Douglas that you told me about.
I'm afraid so. I'm the bearer of bad Douglas news.
Centurion.
Even worse than the time Michael Douglas told the whole world that his wife's pussy gave him throat cancer, which is really a bad move in a relationship. Yeah. He basically said he'd got throat cancer from going down on Catherine Zeta-Jones, which is the most amazing thing. But then, HPV is real, so there you go. Anyway, most people have tuned out already.
Robert Wool, he obviously reprised his role of Knox in the Crisis.
He did, thus folding in the Burton verse. I really liked the way they included all things.
Yes, it's a really nice little.
They put DCEU as well.
Yeah,
Flash Met Flash.
Yeah,
that was neat. That's cool. I haven't actually watched. I've watched key highlights from Crisis on YouTube rather than I haven't watched the whole thing.
I think that's a smart play on Warner Brothers' part because they do need to show a little bit of self-awareness and a bit of parody, which is what that kind of does. Because having Ezra Miller sort of rock up and be like, "Yeah, this is the thing too."
I don't like those, but he's good in them.
Yeah.
I really liked him as Flash. So this is a kind of model of the logo, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of. Yes, and I think it sets the tone of being like, this isn't real. I mean, I think the people who go like, it's dark and gritty, it's like, well, it's dark, but I mean, it's gothic. It's not gritty. It's not realistic, particularly.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, and I think, and it kind of by the standards of the time, it sort of is, right? Like, because nothing else was quite doing this, but it's actually really, it's high expressionist. And
that's what that shows, isn't it? We've gone through this sort of monument of the bat symbol. It's like, well, that's not in the film. That's not a thing. That's just a sort of. It doesn't really say anything. It's
nicely done. It's cool. And one thing this film has got in spades is production design.
Oh god, yeah.
Their version of. I mean, look at that. That's incredible.
Yeah,
that is incredible. And it certainly invokes a space and time. I mean, a lot of this stuff feels very kind of backlotty. I think the street level stuff is.
You see the Monarch Theatre in a lot of shots.
Yes. But look at this frame. Look at all the stuff that's going on here and the lighting and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I will always give praise where it's due, and I don't like this film as a kind of net result. But in terms of being a sum of it, again, I use this phrase a lot, but it's like less than the sum of its parts. You know what I mean?
I think so. For me, the things that really work in this are the production design, the acting for the most part, the score. Is evocative. I think it knows what it wants to do, and what it wants to do on a character level, I'm not as happy with. But I think it shows, especially for a 3-year-old director or whatever he was at the time.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Given
this with like Jack, all the toys to play with, it shows real like confidence in what it wants to say. And I think that's something you always say about Tim Burton, is he is someone who knows what he wants. And not to name drop, but I have been directed by him and been on a set with him and watched him work, and he knows what he wants to do. I mean, he is absolutely, so you say what you will about him as far as whether or not you like what he does, but I think
that's kind of immaterial, really. I think in terms of I'm not necessarily into Tim Burton's Tim Burtonness,
right?
But it comes across, it's indisputably him, as you say. Yeah. See, the criminals in this look like zombies, which
they've got like syphilis or something.
I mean, I get that because Tim Burton's whole thing is Victoriana, isn't it? So they look like sickly syphilitic Victorian urchins. And this kind of thing here, where it's it's a fake out because you think that's young Bruce Wayne, and which is good.
Animated Batman there.
Something the screenwriter Sam Hamm was all about was I like that stuff like that because it's got a really expressionist kind of vibe to it. And things like this, the lighting's really lovely. Like Sam Hamm didn't want to start it as an origin and just have that built through flashbacks, which has been so endlessly copied and since it really set a template. Just to be clear, like I say, and this is a less than the sum of its parts movie for me. The bloke from Auf Wiedersehen, Pet, and Guardians of the Galaxy and Aliens. Alien 3, he's in there, isn't he? Or is he?
No, he's just in Aliens. He's the colony guy it's only shown in the...
He's in so many American films that are shot in the UK, isn't he?
A lot of people were.
I just find this boring to watch, and it's full of logical inconsistencies, and I don't think it serves the character well.
I agree. It's, for me, that it's the character level where things don't pan out. It's what I suppose is. Sorry to go off. This is, I often refer to this when I want someone to shut up. I say, "Shut up, shut up." There he goes. The bird. Like that conversation just goes around in circles whenever it is. The bird, Johnny Gobbs, blah blah blah. Shut up, there ain't no bird.
Now, isn't this the scene where, because the high kick he did injured Michael Keaton for life? Apparently, he's got some recurring back problem because of the sort of kick that he does in this scene. This
weird sort of, I mean, again, Batman in this is sort of a weird passive aggressive psychopath in that he does things like that. He has to put his wings up and what is that for? Again, it's all.
Well, it's style. That's the problem. It's style over substance because it's stuff that looks cool. So from a kind of storyboarded production design end of things, it's cool, and I can see why. Yeah. Seeing this after years of Adam West.
Oh yeah,
it would have blown everybody's minds. Well, it did because I was there. I was young, but we were there when this came out.
Yeah, I was
the summer of or the year of Batmania.
It was all I wanted to see as well, and obviously I couldn't because I was only 5 years old. But that looks like he just jumped to his death. His cape doesn't appear to be providing any kind of.
I like the idea of a vigilante that just walks up and kills himself in front of you.
There's a shot down there. It's just his dead Batman on the pavement. He's like, right.
There he is. Here's Harvey Dent.
Hey.
Who's going to turn into Tommy Lee Jones in a few years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so obviously the character problem, let's get this out of Front Street, is he kills, and the Joker killed his parents. Those are two things that really ruin or really strip him of any kind of agency, really.
Well, yeah, it's kind of irritating that, isn't it? And then it creates I think one of my issues with that is it creates a situation where once he kills the Joker, he's kind of done, isn't he? He's had his vengeance, and
that seems to be a perennial problem with sort of with cinematic Batman that's woven into the Nolan verse as well. Is this idea that there's a finite thing to it, that it's like a comic books by their very nature are second act. There's the origin, there's issue one, and then
you have an 80-year second act.
Yeah, exactly. The same with soap operas and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like trying to put that into a film is very hard. And I suppose what I guess writers do. Is to try and write a conclusion to it, and it's always sort of very hard to do with a character like Batman because especially the conflict in things like The Dark Knight, where you've got the Joker saying we're destined to do this forever, and clearly that was a drive that was supposed to be there, and then it's like, then you write an ending. It's like, and it's the same here. It's like you say, it's like it's a vengeance mission, and it's like that's not Batman.
Well, yeah, and I will say this about the Nolan one, and this is fucking comic book fucking fans, man. Which I am one, but like when you have these discussions, kind of like, oh, well, you're a Nolanite, and it's like, hey, man, it's not religion. We just talk about some films. I'm not
it's not tribal anything, either. Like, why can't you like all the things?
It's
like,
not a football team. Like, for fuck's sake, you have to come at me from this angle. But one of the things I like in the Nolan one is that he's about to kill Joe Chill and close the circle, and then it's robbed from him. Yeah. And then it becomes a more generalized mission of kind of, let's face it, psychopathic vigilante shit. But he's robbed of his agency there in a way that therefore gives him a kind of generalized mission. Yeah. Whereas this is kind of like, oh, Joker killed my parents. Also, I've said this before, I'm always freaked out by the young Jack Nicholson guy.
It's very close.
It's really good, isn't it? Yeah, it's like a really good kind of look.
This is why to be far too on the nose as an origin for the Joker. It's like he's a nasty mob guy who's still a nasty mob guy. He's just got a white face. It's like laughs a bit more.
That is, that's kind of my issue with this as well. The portrayal of Joker, because he just is it's like all these things, like the Lex Luthor Joker. There's all these takes on these characters, so there are various versions, and Joker as gangster is very much a version that's been done. Yeah. It's just not very interesting. It's probably the least interesting one. It's kind of like, well, he's a gangster, and it kind of then justifies his dress-ups because they do this kind of full-on Dick Tracy thing where he wore kind of dark purple, but then now he wears like bright purple and stuff like that. And,
it's this. I remember when I had the version off TV, the bit where he says, "I say you're full of shit, Knox," when Porkins says that to
Porkins. That is their version of Bullock, right?
Yeah. Eckhart is interesting, and then Aaron Eckhart played Two-Face in The Dark Knight. So there you go, it all comes full circle.
There's
he goes, "I say you're full of shit, Knox." On TV, they turned that into "You're full of drink, Knox."
Full of drink.
You're full of drink, Knox. And the guy whoever dubbed it had to say "drink" in the space that shit takes up.
You're full of stuff, Knox. I love those wonky dubs.
They don't really do it anymore, do they?
No, because you watch airline versions of stuff and it just comes out. I think you can kind of blend things more effectively.
Think about the future, or whatever you say.
I mean, their version of Gotham, they get the kind of ultra sleazy, steamy. Yeah, it is cool, but I just thought I don't know. I prefer the kind of. There's too much takes place at night, sort of in steamy rooms. Batman's by his nature is a kind of a nighttime thing, of course.
I don't have a problem with that. I suppose, and I actually like the whole kind of like. There's no origin. It's just like, but Batman is still early days. It's like he's an urban legend. People talk about him. It's like the Bat. Like, what? Shut up. That's not a thing.
Yeah, Johnny Gab.
Yeah, and I think that is a great place to start from, and the world looks great, and he fits in the world. Everything is cohesive. It's the character choices that just let it down, man. It's the yeah, and then it actually it all turns out that the Joker done it, and it's like, yeah, but that it doesn't add weight. It doesn't add weight. It's better that chaos killed Batman's parents. That basically crime itself. I mean, that's the whole point of Joe Chill is he's nobody really.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole point is that the desperation of the city and crime is what killed his parents, and that's the thing. He cannot, it's not a person. He can't seek vengeance against it in that regard. So it's like, he has to go on this crusade. And what's is it Scott, the Scottish comic book writer? What's his name?
There are a few. Grant Morrison.
Thank you. Sorry. Did an interview, I think it was with Kevin Smith or something, and he talked about Batman. And
Fatman on Batman,
something like that. Yeah. He said the whole thing about it is it only makes sense if you see it as like a promise that a kid makes. Yeah. That then he has to uphold as an adult, and he sees it through. But it's like he wouldn't choose to do it now. Yeah. But it's like his kid self made this promise to himself, and he can't back down from it. And it's like that all makes sense. And it's like, and I think this world is really interesting. We do kind of jettison it's at odds with itself in that it's got that 50s 30s aesthetic.
Yeah, this is the thing. It's got it tries to take place out of time, right? Yeah. Which is something that I get making this film in the 80s. Oh, here's Bob Kane fucking over Bill Finger as ever. Or Bob Kane's sketch at least.
What a dick!
Fucking douchebag. Yeah, it's designed to take place out of time, but it's clearly contemporary because it's all about television and video.
Well, it's got things to sell,
stuff
right?
like that.
This is why. This is whenever someone says, "Oh, why can't they make a period Bond film?" I would love that, but you can't sell anything with that because it's
because I remember when Tarantino wanted to do like the period Casino Royale with Brosnan. It's like that sounds great. I'm all over that. Don't ruin Star Trek, but ruin Bond. No, don't ruin. But yeah, a period set because they ended up then, of course, doing
actual Casino Royale,
modern day Casino Royale. Yeah, but like I love the idea of taking the incumbent Bond and winding the clock back and doing an
Elseworlds kind of story. Would be wonderful. And to have Brosnan in that would have been amazing. But or Dalton, or you know what I mean. Like that would have been incredible, but.
Crisis on Infinite Bonds.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's like so much of it comes from product placement, and you can't really sell 1960s.
No, yeah, that sucks, doesn't it? I mean, and it's never going to happen anyway. So it doesn't matter, I suppose. It's immaterial. But yeah, this much like Superman, that's very much of the 70s, but then it invokes the kind of old cartoons and the Fleischer and stuff by having it appear somewhat out of time. In a way to be sort of timeless, really, because this is so insanely expressionist. And Tim Burton wears all that. So, I mean, we've talked about this before. Batman Returns, he straight up just calls a character Max Shrek.
Yeah.
It's just the maddest thing. Jack Palance as Boss Grissom, that's cool casting. He's a menacing, scary geezer. That's good. And it's the guy that Joker needs to sort of take out.
Yeah,
he's playing with cards, Duncan. What could it? Oh, do you think he's going to become the Joker?
Well, the Joker does come up, doesn't it? He literally pulls the Joker out of the pack. I think as well, that's the thing. Was like, I spend however long doing cards, learning cards, and it's like. Yeah, but there's no real reason for that.
One of these days, Jack Napier, you're going to become the character in that deck of cards, but I can't think which one.
When the wind changes, my friend, it's just like.
I played with my belly button and my bum fella.
He's just full of how you talk to it. Eat your crusts or whatever.
Eat your hair, Curly. Step on a crack, break your mother's back. I mean,
and remember it.
I do, in my own shitty way, view this film as being sort of juvenile. So just having his origin story being like a playground rhyme.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame. I think Jack Nicholson is someone who I think gets a lot of there's a certain sort of degree of arrogance attached to him, and it's like I do understand where that comes from, but I do believe works incredibly hard, and I do think on this he really Burton's credited him as sort of helping to really keep the studio out and keep
his clout clearly meant a lot.
Yeah.
Hey, look, the thing is, what kind of annoys me about Jack Nicholson's Joker is he's just Jack Nicholson, and everyone's like, oh, it's a definitive Joker.
Yeah.
The thing is, Jack Nicholson just being Jack Nicholson is incredibly entertaining. He's effortlessly good.
It's if you notice, he takes a lot from Boss Grissom. I know he does the whole "you are my number one."
Would you like a mint?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir. But he does steal a lot of his mannerisms once he becomes the Joker. So it's kind of like I don't know what they're saying with that, because it's kind of like
there's a deleted scene where you find out that Boss Grissom's radioactive, and then he bites Jack Napier before he falls in the Joker juice.
I mean that all as well, like Jack Napier. Why?
It should be Joseph Kerr. If his name was Festivus Laughington or something.
This isn't a proper commentary. It's just two people laughing at their own jokes.
That guy got all like that over there. I like that. There's a guy commented on our Terminator Genesis commentary recently, and there are 3 comments, and you can three acts, a story in 3 acts. You can see him losing his rag throughout the 3 comments, and by the last one, it's just you're just prattling around. It's like, yeah, man, it's Terminator Genesis.
I know. What do you expect? I mean, I suppose to get serious, but so this is all at Pinewood. They built sets at Pinewood. I know they built the backlot stuff at Pinewood.
Yeah, I mean,
between Pinewood
loads
and
of British
Shepperton.
cast and crew, and this Michael Gough we should talk about because he is great. Well, there's Keaton and his weird 90s hair. Yeah, Michael Gough, the celestial toy maker from Doctor Who, and just a great actor from many things. Did Hammer and stuff. And that's like Tim Burton using Vincent Price. That's him going back to his pool of references because he loves British horror and stuff.
Yeah.
Tim Burton very much working. It's
nice to see as well with a sort of you've got that I love that. There's this the sort of two-handed thing going on with them. Yeah, I mean, there was a sort of thing of that, like sort of British actors in their twilight, of their career, kind of coming out and getting this real second wind with stuff. It's like him, Christopher Lee, argued to a point. You've got
Well, but Peter Cushing as well at the end of his, Star Wars and stuff.
Well, and Guinness and who I was thinking of. This is annoying. It will come back to me. But anyway, yeah, lots of people get second wins like that, and I think it's nice that they can. Desmond Llewellyn as Q, because he kind of. I mean, he was younger when he started, but he was in his, I guess, 50s, probably 20s.
So he's probably it's dirty shit aging cycle, mate. I
drink your cream tablet.
What's this? Some kind of glue? No, it's a pint of cream for you to drink.
It's your breakfast.
The foil mission.
I put out 5 cigarettes in it in the time it's taken to say that.
Now drink this gallon of bitter. Yeah. See, their version of Gordon sucks.
I like Pat Hingle.
No, Pat Hingle's great, but they give Gordon nothing to do other than react to stuff. And as this series wears on, which has its own problems,
it gets worse and worse,
he's just pointing at things by the end.
Yeah,
it's terrible. Because this comes from an era. This comes after Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One and stuff, and I think it's just around the time Batman Year One. It's definitely after Dark Knight Returns, and there's a bunch of stuff that gave Gordon just really good, interesting character, and I really liked that they foregrounded him in the Dark Knight movies, because he's a really good character, and this he's just this fat schnook that just points at stuff. It's really shocking.
Well, yeah, so the world of the police in this. What's frustrating is that the police and the mob are something that need proper in the world of Gotham need a proper identity. I think the mob in this is basically just Grisham and Napier, and then it's kind of like, well, the police are Eckhart, and the only ones you have any interaction with are Eckhart and then Gordon. But it's like, and you sort of get a sense that obviously the police are corrupt except for Gordon. Yeah, but it's like there's nothing happens with that. It's kind of just, well, he's a goodie and Eckhart's a baddie, and Eckhart gets shot. And then
it's very simplistic in that approach, and I get that because it's of its time, because I do want to give it. I don't like this film, but I'm not just going to sit like the original commentary we did. I just sat around slagging it, and I was also, that was a long time ago. It was about 8 years ago. Fucking Christ! And I was very much in the mode of like, well, I like Batman Year One and Long Halloween and the Dark Knight films, and I'm a sensible, clever grown-up boy that likes realism, and it's like, no, you're not. Grow up, Richard. It's that level of grown-up that's not grown up.
Right.
So the more fantastic stuff to this, I've come to appreciate a bit more, but I just, again, as a thing, I find it quite boring to watch. It's full of irritating stuff.
It's never annoyed me. Like, I think that's the thing with it. The detractors for this seem to be kind of annoyed by it, and I'd never been annoyed by it, and I certainly, growing up, it had that mystique. And like we've often talked about, like you have with the Terminator, I have with this, which is that when, for some reason, as a kid of a certain era, you would like. I don't understand this because we weren't allowed to watch it. It might have been the compromise that my mum was like, okay, you can record the sound. You can't. Well,
mine was just so I could, because I didn't have like a TV and a VCR in my room, or so I could sit and listen to it in bed. Or when I was away from the house, I could listen to the Terminator. It's this strange, underrated radio play.
I think maybe that's what it was. Now that I think about it, was my mum let me listen to it, but I wasn't allowed to watch it or something. Anyway, so I remember. So the sound for this is very vivid in my mind. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Bruce Wayne in this is interesting as a character, I suppose, but it's kind of like, I don't know. I think. Weirdly, it's his madness that it's the sort of
they really play up the kind of chaotic psycho stuff with him. Don't they?
And it's kind of like somehow
let's get nuts.
Yeah, it's like, and that somehow that is a method in itself, and it's like shouldn't that be the Joker's kind of MO? Because the Joker in this is more like just a mob boss who walks around and does wacky shit, but basically
it does feel like someone's gone. They're the two different sides of the same coin, or whatever. And that's like that's it, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Trivia note. I don't know about the interiors, but the exteriors of Wayne Manor are Nebworth House, aren't they? Down in Hertfordshire, which is just a county down from us, county over. And a home of a famous Oasis gig. Oh. Remember that in the 90s? Oasis played Nebworth.
Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah. And yeah, Michael Keaton, of course, was. When he was cast, because he was known as a comedian mostly, everybody hated it, and pre-internet there was a letter writing campaign.
That's right.
How you shouldn't have him, and he's one of the best things in this. He is really great. I mean, yes, he's not really the right physicality for Batman, but he's a great actor.
This Batman, I think this Batman does transcend that, in that you don't need a big muscle-bound guy for it, because it's more that, you know, when you're putting him under all that rubber and everything anyway, he's fit, he's just not, he's not.
I mean,
muscle-bound.
In this universe, he might as well be magic anyway.
Yeah.
Because none of it really makes sense, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
there are things such as, like, being unable to turn his head and stuff, and being whatever size he is. Michael Keaton is someone who... did you ever watch The Founder, the film about McDonald's? I really like that. Film, and just him in general, and obviously Birdman, he's riffing on what he did here and stuff. And, you know, it's...
Jackie Brown, I like him in as well. I'd like him in... I don't think I've ever watched him in something
you know what?
I really
like. In RoboCop 2014 stinks, and it's a waste of Michael Keaton, but he does really well with the material, and it's like, yeah, fuck. If you were doing the glossy RoboCop remake well, I would still have him in it.
Yeah,
you know,
he's not the problem with it at all. No, he's someone I've got a lot of time for. He's very good on screen, really good in Spider-Man as well.
Yeah, and he's back for the Morbius film. Lucky him.
Yeah.
But Michael Keaton's great, and you know, if the internet was around when this film was announced, everyone would have lost their shit over it, because I think there was what really got this made was The Dark Knight Returns, really, because it created an interest in a sort of darker version of Batman.
Sure.
And I think like the Coen brothers wanted to do it with Clint Eastwood or something. One of these things got bounced around everybody. And they eventually landed on this. And supposedly Adam West wanted to do like The Dark Knight Returns as an adaptation. He was annoyed they didn't come to him or something, weren't they? I think, which is a bit like, it's a new version and stuff. Dude. Though, can you imagine The Dark Knight Returns with Adam West? It's like... Robin.
And where is the pole? It's like, well, it's not
this isn't a mud hole, it's an operating table. I can't do
Adam Weed. Yeah. They're spitting out paper and shit like that. Look at that machine that just does fuck all. It's so out of Edward Scissorhands, isn't it, all that? Like,
yeah, again, it's the Tim Burton world of kind of high expressionist, you know, it's very... let's say design-led. It's a very design-led universe, and it is very strong. But
there's nothing wrong with that. You know, I actually don't think that's a problem. I suppose
it's not a problem. It's just not harmonious with the other elements. I think it's style over substance. So the story suffers and the characters suffer because it's too busy going like, I really like Art Deco. It's kind of that Art Deco Gothic.
So I like shots like that, and I do like the way he frames like Batman, and the world has a real. It feels three-dimensional in the sense of, I know what you mean, perhaps it's not as substantive as it could be, but it's like, it all feels like it feels like there's stuff behind the camera as well, you know, it feels like we're in this place. It doesn't feel, I know later on some of it's quite set-bound, but it's like, it does feel like it knows, like I say, it's a confidence, I suppose, is what I mean, is it's like, the camera's where he wants it, the characters are doing what he wants them to do, everything is as they want it to be. Do you think that's Battersea or somewhere?
I would not be surprised at all, because Battersea was so extensively used.
This is like why would he do that? Like, why?
Because it looks cool.
Yeah.
I think as well, like Batman killing people, right?
Like that, swishing his cape and just following him on a hike.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's it. Batman killing people. I don't think it's sort of a way of looking at it and going like, you know what? We have this kind of ideology behind it, or whatever. I think it's just because it looks cool. Like when the little balls come out of the car and kill all those people later, it's like, well, it just looks cool.
I don't think that's even thought about, is it? It's just like, because it's all shown off screen, you know, it happens off screen effectively. So it's like, it's just, it's that. Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's the rhythm of what Batman does in this, and a lot of these sorts of films were quite rhythmically led. So what I mean by that is, it's like even here, for example, right, lands, kick, boom, out the hand, bang. On the ground, up in the air, like, you know, it's like that, and that thing with the bomb out of the Batmobile, it's just sort of goes ding, 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 boo, you know, and it's like, and it's supposed to be a sort of smug, our hero just has to press a button and wins, you know, it's that sort of thing, and it was happening at that time, especially in the 70s as well. It was that thing like Bond, like Roger Moore's Bond. It was like, I'll just press this button and win, and it's like, well, and there was a sort of
the writing was really lazy by the end.
It's not even that. It's just, I suppose we didn't want. I think it was what audience wanted. They wanted a sort of smug hero who had it all figured out You know what I mean? It's like you weren't in the head of the protagonist. You weren't supposed to suffer with them. They were supposed to be.
I think that reaches a kind of excess, doesn't it? Because it goes so far beyond the window of wish fulfillment that it just becomes ridiculous.
Yes,
they can just do whatever they want,
and boring, and like there's nothing.
Well, that's kind of the Die Another Day problem as well, isn't it? It's so fantastic and stuff, and it's just sort of like, well, I think maybe.
Have you seen Die Another Day?
Yeah.
Oh, you have. Okay, yeah. I don't think. That film. No,
I don't mean fantastic like it's good. I mean fantastic.
No, I know what you mean.
Like, yeah, just
I think that film. I mean, it's often cited as an example of that. That's not quite because it opens with him being caught and put in a Korean prison, and it's all very nasty. It just tonally jumps all over the place. And I think by the end, then yes, there are moments where it's like he just turns on a valve and a thing explodes next to someone.
Well, and having the invisible car and stuff. It goes
easy.
Way into kind of wish fulfillment and. Yeah, and, there's an element of wish fulfillment to Bond massively because he's kind of sartorial and smooth and handsome and smart, but then also going into space, Moonraker, or having the invisible car, and it passes through this window of just being kind of absurdist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you still need to be able to see yourself in him for it to work. It doesn't work if you're suddenly like, oh, I can't.
The kind of the through line between Bond and Batman seems to be less discussed than it used to be, but it used to always be the gadgets, the suit, the car. Well, that was what everybody wanted,
I like that shot of him against the Axis thing. Yeah, I think that reached its apex in the hit sitcom Friends when in one episode they're talking about because doesn't Rachel work for Ralph Lauren or something, and she's saying, "Oh, I can get you tuxes to go to a wedding or something."
I think that was a visual reference to M, by the way, when his hand comes.
Oh, was it?
I believe so.
Okay.
Anyway, so
yeah, and I think anyway, she's like, "Oh, I can get you a tux, blah blah blah, worn by," and then she goes, "Oh, Pierce Brosnan," and they're like, "Oh, 007's tux," and he's like, "I'm going to go to the wedding in James Bond's tux," and then the other one's like, "I've got Val Kilmer's," and he's like, "Batman's tux," and so there was that thing that you're right, and so I think the kind of casting
they seem to be tied.
It's weird, yeah, it is weird.
Kind of, they seem to be tied into each other, and it was in the kind of discourse when you discussed, and it was when this is a time when you weren't allowed to be geeky.
Right.
That's so important. That's so forgotten about because now everyone's got a fucking Rebel Alliance tattoo on their neck and all their shit.
Yeah, the geeks will inherit the earth kind of thing.
Yeah, and you buy Batman t-shirts and Asda and stuff. You weren't allowed to be geek, and you'd be called a fucking loser for making the smallest reference to something. Yeah. And now the fucking lad that would bully you in school is going kind of like, "Oh, well, I don't understand how US Agent is in a series taking place in 2020 in the Marvel continuity." And it's like, dude, you're the fucking sports guy from school. When did this happen? Like, I'm not gatekeeping, but like, it's a different world.
Zeitgeist and shit like that.
You weren't expected to know all the backstory and stuff.
Yeah,
and now because everybody's got all their social media and they're constantly because even the most casual view of Marvel films is going through their social media one day and they go kind of top 10 alternate versions of Black Panther. So this person who would have no interest or no access to that is now being served that. I don't think that's a bad thing, but the time of this there was no expectation. So Joker killing Batman's parents, right? Batman killing people. It was a minority of people that cared, and they cared a lot. But your average moviegoer just didn't give a shit. Yeah. And then I remember when Batman Begins came out, there's this guy I knew who was a bit of a twat, and so were his mates, but that doesn't relate to what they... But they come out of Batman Begins going, that's bullshit. Everybody knows that Joker killed Batman's parents. Yeah, and because the world was less prepared, because reboots weren't really a thing in the same way either, they thought that Batman Begins was supposed to be a prequel to this. Yeah. And then didn't understand why it didn't match up. It's like, no, it's a new thing.
Yeah, same thing with my friend Olivia, God bless her, when we came out of seeing Batman Begins, for me, for the third time, in the cinema, she was like, but that doesn't make sense because the Joker killed Batman's parents. It's like, it's not a prequel, it's a reboot. It's a reboot. It really was.
But that wasn't done then, was it?
No, it was a reboot, and it's funny because Bond obviously did it a year later with Casino Royale, and I can't say that one influenced the other. I know that in the tabloids it was like, oh, Bond Begins, they would say, but it wasn't. I don't think it was that because Casino Royale was well into pre-production at the time that all that came out. So it was just a where things were going, which was like, we've written ourselves into such a corner with these continuities. Let's just...
Well, it's mad because there was a time where you couldn't do it because people just wouldn't understand.
Yeah,
it's not like reboots had never happened because they happened in a slower cycle, but you wouldn't just do that because the idea was people wouldn't understand. So we went like 7 years without a Batman film.
I think it frustrates me as well that yeah, absolutely, and then you've kind of got like Begins does get brushed under the carpet a lot for stuff like that though, and it's like people talk about The Dark Knight ad nauseum, but they don't talk about Begins, and they don't give Begins any credit. They're like, like, oh yeah, that happened as well, but The Dark Knight, right? And it's like, yeah, but that only works if you've got Begins, and like the Begins really did, like, it was the, you know, it proved it was the canary in the coal mine in lots of ways. It was that thing of like, if this doesn't work, these other things would never have happened, and it worked really well, and it did do well. But it's like Superman Returns had a bigger box office gross than Begins, which is
Begins
nuts.
presumably had a smaller budget though.
But everyone talks, probably, yeah, but well, definitely. But everyone talks
even
about,
so, yeah, like
everyone talks about Superman Returns as this giant flop, and it's like, well, it took more money.
Yeah, it just didn't do as well as they wanted it to.
Yeah.
And again, I do think the DC should have stuck to their guns. There's a strange flirtation with, and because also there was this kind of loose but not real assumption that this was, you know, somehow in the Christopher Reeve continuity as well, because it had to be, because, you know, no one ever says that, and I think it's George Clooney makes a reference to Superman, and I think
Val Kilmer
Forever says Metropolis.
Yeah.
But you know, they never kind of could go through with that, I suppose, because again, the idea of crossing over the characters was just like, no, you can't do that, it's mad. People would be confused.
I don't know how licensing worked as well though at that time, so it's like whether or not, you know, even though Warner Brothers owned the character, well, I suppose they could have done. That's a nice little bit of visual shorthand there from Anton First, is that you've got the neon light flashing outside. If you want to say anywhere's a dive, do that, because he's clearly like above a fucking 7-Eleven or, you know, or a strip club.
good old mob.
Look at that! Like fucking rusty tools that he's used to do what to as well. Like, for God's sake!
I'd say, considering what he had available to him, he's done quite a good job.
Yeah, you see what they have to work with.
I say, because when
where's he going as well? Is he going upstairs? Because it looks like they're on the top floor.
It's just a big stacked up building.
Yeah.
We going to fucking Nebworth House. You got to do it quick because the National Trust will be here tomorrow to sell jam and
and boots.
Well, this is where Bono lives.
It's got the largest collection of hatchbacks. Vicky. So Kim Basinger.
She's definitely standing on a lower step. She's totally way taller than him.
Yeah, definitely. I like her a lot, but she came onto this very last minute, didn't she?
Yeah, it was Sean Young. Yeah,
Sean Young was
crazy. Sean Young, and then she wanted to be Catwoman in the next one.
Yeah, it was something like she got pregnant in the lead up to this, so then couldn't do it.
And was it a horse riding accident?
It was a horse riding accident for the Catwoman. Or not that I think she was necessarily in the run.
Sean Young's great value though. She's so nuts. She's the maddest nuts. Look at that. That is a wonderful piece of production design in those big statues and stuff outside. I mean, that's the thing.
Let's just make a deal. Sugar bub. And isn't that the thing, like he has a purple dye on his neck because the coat wasn't purple or something, and they had to they didn't have one, they had to dye it.
Because this film, you know, this film was a success in spite of itself. It was an awful production where people had a horrible time, and there was, you know, lots of stress and strife. But look where it got them, you know, quite often the stress productions sort of do.
Well, Superman was the same thing. I mean, it does follow the Superman model in that, you know, cast get the big names first. So it was, in this case, Nicholson and well, I suppose it's just Nicholson, really, isn't it? I can't think there's not anyone else.
Well,
Palance,
I suppose really Jack Palance is one as well, and oddly enough, Paul Rubens plays the Penguin's dad in.
Yes,
the second movie.
Yeah,
which the TV series Gotham reprised, and he came back and did that again.
Oh, did he? Yeah, nice.
Because obviously, you know, Tim Burton got his start on a Pee Wee Herman movie.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Tim Burton frustrates me because I think he horribly overindulges himself, and things like Alice in Wonderland I just find inexorable. It's just dire. There's a bunch of stuff like that, but the thing is, he's got a real lightness of touch for comedy stuff. You look at that purple dome. Wow, it's huge. That.
Oh yeah.
That reveal is obviously very iconic, isn't it?
Yeah.
That swooping.
The best shot of him, I think, is when he sat in the chair later on and he's like, "Wait till they get a load of me." And he's like, and it's like, and it just, the lighting there is really bad. The makeup in this is like, if you're gonna, you know, it is purely the comic book Joker brought to life. It doesn't always work in every light, but in the sort of dark light of stuff, it looks really good.
I've always kind of like this sort of magic trick. It is a magic trick of him wiping makeup on, but it's made to make look he's wiping makeup off.
I believe not, actually. If I can't remember where they said it. It's on. Well, I don't think it's on the DVD. He's got a layer underneath.
So that's what I mean. Yeah. So he's wiping off the white to make it. No, wait. He's wiping off the flesh color, but in actual fact he's wiping on white colour.
No, but I thought that, but it's not. Apparently.
So it is
he's literally got 2 layers of makeup on or something like that. So it's like when he's wiping off,
because he looks all corpsey, doesn't he? When he's got the flesh tone on.
That's right, yeah, because he's made up with the Joker makeup, then they've put a layer of, and it's like, and then like Vaseline or something, then they put the other makeup on it, so there's a barrier or something. So like they literally went to those lengths. It's crazy.
He's upside down like some kind of animal, but I can't think what.
What does that do? That's another one of those like those fat jiggler machines that somehow make you thin again.
I mean, at least they do pay some kind of credence to him being physically fit, because that's sort of the point of Batman. Roger Pratt here is doing, Tim Burton uses the film noir German expressionist thing all the time. He's built a whole career on it, and Roger Pratt is carrying that out for him really well. Yeah, there's all the chiaroscuro lighting and lots of kind of obscured stuff. I mean, that's great. You can't really fuck with that. You've seen Brazil, right? Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
Yeah, I mean in fits and starts. So
okay, it's a really good film. It's a wonderful. The production. Well, that's Roger Pratt's cinematography as well, and that relies on a lot of lighting, steam, and smoke. And I think visually, this film and that film share a lot.
Okay, yeah.
In terms of how they're covered, and Brazil has a kind of procedural. The kind of background of Brazil is a kind of procedural, kind of noir thing, and that shares that with this. I think it's a kind of appropriate match. So I don't fuck with that.
No, I like how this is shot and everything. I don't, like I say, I think I would rather have a filmmaker who is making exactly, who's making a thing and making choices, than one that isn't. And you've kind of got an incoherent or blandly made film. I mean, it's.
Batman Returns is the uninterrupted Tim Burton version of Batman, which has barely any Batman in it. It's basically about silent film, but
it's the. I mean, I don't think Tim Burton didn't write it, but it's that sort of like.
I think it's a script that's done to his will, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can tell, and I think that the idea was because this did so well, they made that on the basis that Tim Burton had full control. So I think it got messed with quite a lot. This one,
yeah, arguably. I mean, I think that's a Batman thing as well, which is that you see that a lot. First one, no, they're not banking on it. It's a it's a property that's in the gutter, so they give it to someone to make. That's Einstein on the list.
It's like a comedy Dick Tracy mob guys. Like it's so.
But and then it's such a steaming success that they're giving the second one free reign, and the second one arguably is far less disciplined. I mean, I say that. I'm sorry, I said this to Christopher Nolan's cousin, without realising, even though his surname's Nolan, and he's a lovely bloke, and he didn't say anything, and a very good actor. But anyway,
you're a twat, mate.
no, not at all. But I do think that The Dark Knight still is a bit undisciplined. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great. I think it's a really, really great film, and I love it. But it's I arguably, in the light of Begins, I just don't think it's quite as disciplined. The story it's telling.
We will get to
that.
We
will
get to that. Yeah, but it's a valid part of the discussion, obviously.
And I say that. I mean, that is real nitpicking in a way, because I still think it's fantastic.
So doesn't it? He goes ready break colours, and then doesn't he turn into a charred corpse? Like
literally,
well,
that's happening off screen right now. Is his flesh is burning off, and he's turning into that.
It's a skeleton. That little kind of pull out was a bit weird, but yeah, this kind of cartoon Dick Tracy stuff. Because what I sort of like about in the more grounded Batman stuff, and what I like about Year One and everything, is that before it went completely nuts, it was sort of Batman versus the mob. Yeah, and this is doing that.
Yeah,
but it's in this kind of, again, cartoony Dick Tracy way, and the kind of ins and outs of the Gotham mob aren't really explained. They're all kind of cartoony mob guys, and the Joker just comes in and takes that. So that's a bit.
Yes, he's wiping, but he is actually
going through to the next layer. Because he's all corpsey and stuff, isn't he? And
I mean, it's funny because I'm sure this is true of the comics as well, but certainly what I was growing up with as a kid, the animated series and all that kind of stuff, the Joker was always, and I guess it's born of the Adam West thing as well, which was that the Joker just did funny, wacky things each time, and he wanted to poison Gotham's fish and turn the laughing fish thing and all that, and it was oh, well and good, but it's in cinematic language, you kind of have to show him as a reaction to things, and you kind of have to show him. It's they've never done a Joker where he's not involved with the mob somehow. Even in Suicide Squad, he's sort of sitting down with
he's
mob
like
guys.
he's like a kind of crunk gangster, isn't he? It's like that. They did like a music video of Rick Ross. I loved, I missed the tie-in music video.
Yeah.
Because they are awful but brilliant. And of all the films ever, Suicide Squad decided to bring that back to have the Joker with Rick Ross, which is just the worst thing ever.
Birds of Prey is out soon, I think, isn't it?
Like next week or something.
Yeah, going to rush to see that. Anyway. But yeah, it's kind of like, I think it works. I think The Dark Knight does it very smartly. Is that his bathroom in the background? There's a sink.
Oh, I suppose it is. Yeah.
Right. So he's got his boardroom.
This is the origin story of Scarecrow. That guy's good.
His boardroom has an ensuite, apparently.
I'm glad you did. I
need to see a doctor.
He's going to need some Savlon, mate.
Yeah. That's me at the beach.
I need some Sudocreme.
I mean, that would stink as well. He's literally just burned
barbecue pork.
She's looking under W for why.
Oh, they reference they reference Corto Maltese in this, and that's when the DC universes go to made up. It's essentially Val Verde, really, isn't it? And I think because Dark Knight Returns, the war between the Soviets and the Americans, I think, is over a piece of land in Corto Maltese. Right. So they sort of pay a bit of lip service. This is the thing, I think tonally they wanted The Dark Knight Returns, which they've kind of done, because The Dark Knight Returns is absurd and mad and crazy, and that's part of the part of the appeal. It's the way in which you then handle that. Because and again, to the mainstream, I think my memory of Batman was, I absolutely just loved the Adam West Batman when I was a little kid. Right. And then I got to that point of little kidness where it's kind of like, that's for babies. I'm grown up now because I'm 6 or whatever. Yeah. And then this come out, probably didn't see it till I was 7. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, I like the cool grown up one and not the shit Adam West one. Yeah. And then as an adult, it's kind of like, actually the Adam West thing in terms of its humour was way ahead of its time. It was doing this kind of certain thing in a place and time. And
that's one of those things that sits in your head from when you're a kid, and because you've never thought about it since, it's just stayed there as a truth in your subconscious that you've not actually. It's just like moths are attracted to light because they're trying to get to the moon or whatever. It's like that's not true. Why would a moth be trying to get to the fucking moon?
Have you been to the moon? Lousy with moths.
Yeah. That's why it's all dusty and grey. That's why they come back when you get a moth. It's covered in moon dust.
Moon dust on their wings. How they smell of cheese.
Yeah. So I mean,
tummy full of your clothes to fly to the moon.
So again, I think that's true. And it's like people don't really think about it. They don't really sort of. But that is turning. I do think people are like all these things go in circles, don't they? It's like Adam West Batman now is getting more truck. It's getting more kind of in an ironic way, and then eventually in a serious way, because everyone wants to be a contrarian arsehole. It's like those people who go like, George Lazenby is actually my favourite James Bond. It's like you're just saying that to be different. It's like I just realised my socks like Batman and Robin. It's like right.
Yeah. Because I would say that. Because the Adam West Batman actually has merits. Like the writing's really, really funny, and the time it took place, and the stuff it did.
It's its thing, man. It is a confident thing. Whether you like the choice or not, it's a choice.
Yes, yeah. There's not a lot really you can say about that. Like because I kind of went the other way with this. Because I sort of like decided I was a clever, smart grown up and hated Adam West stuff. Because and particularly when I was in my when I was at uni. And I was like, oh mate, have you read Batman Gothic? And like getting all Batman Year One and stuff, and getting up my own arse about how it's going to be sensible and gritty and blah.
I drink gin through a shoe or whatever.
Thankfully, I think we were at uni before all that shit started. True. There's a different kind of wankitude that went on, I suppose. But I borrowed this from my friend Andy Gray. He's also a videographer. Andy had this on DVD, and I hadn't watched it for years, and in my head it was this amazing film that I just hadn't watched in a while. And I was like, oh man, can I borrow Batman off you to watch? He's like, yeah, of course. I went upstairs and watched it on my own one Thursday evening. I just gave it back to Andy. I was like, it's kind of shit, isn't it? He was like, no, it's brilliant. And I was like, it was kind of boring and dumb, man. I just sort of didn't like it. And then, started looking back at the Adam West stuff, doing a completely different thing, because this is the guy who thought like Batman has to be more grittier, and I went and watched the Adam West one. I was like, well, actually that's a completely valid mental interpretation of
It was serialized as well, you know. It was for that format of like an adventure. Literally, will they get dynamic duo?
Yeah.
You know, all that stuff was.
And it's so self-aware as well. Everything dumb in it is on purpose.
Well, that's the thing I think critics of it don't realise. Well, don't because they probably haven't watched it since they were a kid. But it's like it wasn't done like they weren't seriously saying this is real. It was all supposed to be tongue in cheek. They did it knowingly, you know.
It's supposed to be stupid because it's kind of like winkingly looking at. I don't
see that stuff
unless that's poison.
Speaking of, exactly.
So, ow!
That wouldn't kill
That's
him.
the equivalent of like stepping on a drawing pin. And
oh no! Yeah, that has to have some. Well, I'm assuming it does have like curare
poison on it because it's a Joker, I guess.
Do you think that shot earlier when the mime was coming up to him, you got that shot of Bruce Wayne, and it's like the mime's sort of out of frame, and you see his hand come in, and he waves at him and stuff like that. That looked punched in on because there was a wider shot, and then it didn't look.
Oh, maybe.
Do you know what I mean?
This era of stuff, you can tell on those punched in shots because you get that extra sort of grain to it. Because this does have that, you know, this is at the kind of high end of. Well, it's towards the end of film for everything, right? This is before pre-digital, but about a couple of decades before, and has that kind of grainy, filmy look. Which is no bad thing.
This is obviously pre-Gossip Gardy, who came in with Joel Schumacher once, who's Bob Kane's wife. You know, he's like, oh, you're so fabulous.
Man, well, again, I really like Batman. Well, I don't really like, but I like Batman Forever, as we discussed in feature length.
Yes, true.
Whereas we do have to do Batman and Robin.
I love that he's got a punching this set up on a pole next to his chair.
Look, man. Look, some of us prefer this gritty, realistic version of Batman. Like, I'm sick of you with your, you know, don't talk me down. I want this realistic version of Batman, okay?
So let's address, I suppose, the people who say, like, Batman killed people in the comics thing. It's like, yes, he did, but they realised that was a bad choice.
Well, this is the thing.
Ultimately.
People say that because, like, you take 80 years of comics, Batman killed people for a bit in the 1930s, and it's like, no, because in the 1978 issue, it's like, okay, fine, you've still got 80 years of comics, and you can point me to like a fraction of a percent where Batman. So the same thing happened with fucking Man of Steel. It's kind of like, no, because in the 1980s in John Byrne's run he killed, and it's just like, yeah, sure, and that was wiped out of continuity because it was a bad decision.
Well, I have less of an issue with Superman doing it because there is much more, I think, precedence both in cinema and in comics. It's not part of it. You know, it's an assumed thing about Superman, but it's not something he doesn't set out saying, I swear I will not kill anyone. Like, he never does that, right?
The thing is, there's so much Superman continuity that he probably did somewhere.
Yeah, probably, but you know what I mean? It's not. I don't know. I don't want him to. I'm not saying I want him.
It robs Superman of his innocence when he's killing people. And the thing is, if he has to, it's the way they handled it in Man of Steel as well.
Yeah.
It was on top of him acting like a dark psycho all the time. It's kind of like, I don't buy that. He's as cut up about it as they make out, because they made him look like a fucking psycho.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, and the idea that the reason why he's cut up about it is because that was the last Kryptonian. Now he's all alone. It's like, well, that's very introspective.
It was all very flimsy.
You
know.
But yeah, he's the Randian Superman, isn't he? So I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Objectivist Superman doesn't give a fuck what you think.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it's. I have less of a problem with Superman, but certainly with Batman, it's like, look. Here, it's like he doesn't have a problem with guns, so why isn't he just carrying guns?
Yeah.
Why isn't he just mowing down mob? There's so many times where it's like you can just kill them.
I also think it makes him less interesting because he just becomes the Punisher as the Punisher is an interesting thing, but Batman just as the Punisher isn't as interesting.
Well, I don't understand why, because like earlier, that always confused me when the Joker when Jack Napier shoots at him and he ricochets the bullet, doesn't he, off his gauntlets? I always thought he threw something at him or did something, but anyway, that. It's like, why don't you just shoot him? Like, you don't have a problem with guns on your car, but neither does Nolan's Batman, by the way. But you don't have a problem with, like, blowing shit up. It's like, just fucking mow him down. Carry a gun and mow him down.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's another thing people go, no, in the early ones, he used to carry a gun and shoot people. Well, he doesn't carry a gun in this, so it's very confusing as to what, like...
And it's clear that, again, they didn't know what they were kind of... It was early days, and yeah, Batman just went around fucking killing people, but it did not last very long.
Yeah.
And that is because it's essentially... There's another pulp era comic called The Bat, who looks exactly like the Batman without the pointy ears. So and he had like two guns, just go and shooting fuckers. It's just like...
Right.
Well, it's fucking Siegel and Schuster's original pitch for Superman was essentially Lex Luthor. It was a big bald villainous guy, and they kind of went, no, we changed that. It's the other thing now. It's the opposite thing now.
Right.
And it was called like the Superman or something. So I mean, that kind of stuff, because comic continuity is a mess. I do like the kind of serial killer shit that Joker does.
That's very Burton as well. Having watched him work, I'm not going to say it in that voice because I have, but he did that on Dark Shadows. I remember he going around, because the idea was there's a cannery that blows up, and he was literally getting plastic fish heads and placing them very particularly around the.
So his work is very design led.
Yeah, and like there's another example of that where all the like cut out photos, like it's laid in an impossibly sort of uniform thing around it. But again, like, that I think it's deliberate. Again, whether you agree with it or not, that's something that Batman did earlier as well, like running onto it and stopping on a walkway. And
that's a great shot with the cans cutting across. And again, all this stuff is German expressionist shit, which I bring up a lot.
See, he does that as well with his thing. It's like the Batman did that earlier, like it's sort of the swooshing motion off the thing. I don't know if that's
is this where, see, again, I think but Tim Burton as a humorist is really good, and this is where. Is this where he's tainted all the makeup and products so they just look like shit?
I don't know if it's here or I think it's later on maybe. Yeah, no, they've got makeup.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they look all terrible.
Look at those models as well. They look ridiculous. Candy Walker and Amanda Keeler. I'm sure those are
some kind of deep cuts. Yeah. See, this stuff here, this feels kind of Frank Miller-y because the device of showing televisions was done so extensively in Dark Knight and Frank Miller's work in general, and it's something that coincidentally was in the first RoboCop, and then Frank Miller does in the second RoboCop as writer. Like, so those two things kind of feed back into themselves, and it's a key component of Frank Miller's stuff. Yeah, see, this is quite creepy because she sort of degenerates and
What's that rictus grin, nasty like way to go? It's like it's almost laughing yourself to death. It sounds horrific.
Nasty way.
It's like getting tickled, isn't it? It's like it's not a nice thing.
Yeah.
People do it to kids all the time. But I remember my dad used to do it to me all the time. It's like, I'm not having fun.
You fucking sadist.
Joker brother.
This would be better if it's Dale Winton, the late great Dale Winton.
Yeah. Smile. They've been using brand X. Smiley. And it's at the end it cuts, doesn't it? And it's got like an actual like cartoon Joker face comes out of the screen.
Oh yeah, right.
Which is kind of weird. But I suppose in this world, it's like that's what he thinks he looks like or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is the funny thing. Like, this is your gritty, realistic Batman. Yeah, so the Joker's got quite a lot of production value, and he's got some designers on board.
I can buy him doing that though. This Joker, I can buy him doing that, kidnapping those people.
I suppose he's moneyed, isn't he?
Getting Bob to like probably steal rob a camera truck somewhere, and then setting all this stuff up. Like he's got a set. Like he's got a set with a thing. But that's quite Jokery. I mean, I do think that that.
Yeah, but it's the cake and eat it of this, in that people talk about how realistic it is and stuff, and it's like,
I think people.
I think they used to.
I think they use the term realistic in conjunction with dark and gritty, as if those two things are.
Well, that's something that annoys me as well, and I just, I hate people just describe saying things like it's going to be gritty, it's more gritty. Like, what does that? That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean anything. It's basically a marketing fucking buzzword. Like,
yeah. No, I know, and like I said, that is somehow synonymous with realistic. It's like, well, it isn't. Yeah. I mean, I think it became part of that because, again, is a sort of response to 9/11 and everything. Like, a lot of stuff did become. It was like life's a shitter. Like life is gritty and horrible because it was so rammed home to us.
I think it's something that's because it came out of the kind of comics. It comes out of the comics thing really, because after Watchmen and Dark Knight, everything had to be sort of dark and retro, and people conflate or confuse something being mature and something being adult.
Yep.
Tits and swearing and violence, all great things, are adult.
Yeah.
They're not mature.
Yeah.
But people just didn't seem to get that. So there's a bunch of Image comics in the 90s where everyone's like saying fuck and getting murdered all the time, and it's like this mature comics. It's like, no, I don't think it is.
We discussed this in relation to something else recently, but it's that thing of like horror films generally are not mature. Slasher films more.
Yeah, it depends on a case by case basis.
There's mature horror,
absolutely,
but horror in and of itself.
So say something like Get Out is a mature horror because it's got a ton of themes in it.
Sure, There's
a bunch of, and something like The Shining is quite mature because again there's a bunch of themes. Yeah. And then something like Jason Takes Manhattan is completely fucking puerile. It's brilliant, and I think it knows that as well. It knows that about itself. It's not pretending to be anything else.
That's why I think it's like Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, this is also part of the sort of silly hysteria of things like the video nasties and stuff like that goes on today even. But it's like this idea that this is clearly from someone who hasn't watched it, because this is not it's a kids film but about a slasher. You know what I mean? It's like it's so immature in the way it deals with it. It's the same thing with RoboCop. It's like Verhoeven's spoken about it a lot, with like Mr. Kenny getting shot and stuff like that. It's supposed to be absurd. It's not you're not supposed to be going, oh, ow, ah. Ooh.
Yeah,
like,
it's so ridiculous.
Yeah,
because you know what he's said before is like the MPAA cut that.
Yeah.
And it's so much worse when it's cut because it is what you don't see, and like
exactly,
in terms of a visceral sense. Jerry Hall as well.
Yes, of course.
Should have pointed out.
All right.
Well, now wife of Rupert Murdoch. Previous.
All right.
Not that you should divide. But, all right. What is it he says in The Simpsons? I'm Rupert Murdoch, billionaire tyrant. It's quite ballsy when you were owned by Fox at the time.
Yeah. Oh god, they always had digs
at Fox Network.
Yeah. This is a good set. I mean, look at that.
This is a great set. This is the Prince track played here?
It's played when the Joker shows up, yeah.
And Gotham has all these real life artworks that they definitely wouldn't have. Like, because doesn't he trash like a...
Yeah, that isn't that of George Washington or whatever in the background. That's the supposedly what's riffed in The Simpsons as being what the thing Sprungfield like gets on his shoe when it's ripped to the bottom.
It's ripped to the bottom. I think when he trashes the paintings, I think for the most part they are real. They're real paint, not actual real, real artworks that he's supposed to be.
Because there's the one with the like this butchered meat hanging up, and he's like, I like this. Or whatever.
See, here's the thing, right? Gotham, as you know, Gotham appears in most cases to be a version of New York or say Chicago, right? Like it seems to occupy that space. But Gotham is a term that I think was invented to refer to New York in the sort of Depression.
Yeah, I always forget which way around it is because obviously, Marvel does real cities. Yeah, and DC makes them up, but it is supposed to be a version of something. But I always thought that like because Gotham and Metropolis, isn't it like Philadelphia and New York?
Yeah, well, Gotham would be like Kansas City, I guess. Is it meant to be in the Midwest, or is it meant to be? Because I know
Gotham?
Metropolis.
I don't think it's supposed to be in the Midwest. No, I think it's supposed to be a coastal. Like that's what I mean.
Oh yeah, of course, it's coastal, isn't it?
It's kind of like a.
Well, Gotham has Bloodhaven, and Bloodhaven is like Jersey, right? So I mean,
it makes sense.
I mean, it's whatever you need it to be.
Yeah.
The point that I've very slowly got around to is that, and we talked about this very recently. In Superman the movie, it's fucking New York, and they even show the Statue of Liberty, and it's like, well, for fuck's sake! Like, whereas this is very much its own thing. It's kind of New York-ish when you see its skyline and whatever.
Yeah,
but it's its own thing. You know, it is Gotham. It's absolute. It's not.
I gather like really for Gotham to work, it needs to be old school American. You know, because American cities relative to ours are not that old. But somewhere like New York is as old as it gets, you know, and it's got some sort of Gothic, neo-Gothic, whatever stuff in it. So you kind of need, I think you kind of need that. Somewhere like Philadelphia, I think is still has a history, but it's like it has a lot more. I think its skyline and stuff is more kind of what Metropolis is, which is kind of. It's not restricted to an island for a start.
I suppose it's whatever you need it to be, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
time.
Do you know what I mean? People always say that, they're like, "Oh, but Marvel's in the real world." It's like, well, I kind of don't. Yeah, no, it isn't. And also, I kind of don't want it to be. I'd much rather have these cities that are stand-ins for places.
The Marvel's whole thing was about being relatable, wasn't it, and having kind of real. Real cities and stuff, and more relatable people was the idea. There's the idea with Spider-Man and stuff like that. Kid and whatever. And I think they're attempting to ground it in reality. I mean, ultimately, it's still got like interdimensional beings and robots and whatever. But I don't know. Like at least Gotham in this is its own thing, whereas in fucking again in Superman the movie it's just New York, and it's just like, what the fuck, mate?
I mean, I have less of an issue with that than you do apparently, but
it just bugs me because it's like, look, it either is or it isn't, because it's kind of like if you set, I can't think of the British equivalent because I can't think of many British. There's not really a lot of British media that has stand-in cities like that,
right?
But if you did have your stand-in city that's meant to be London, then they just go to Buckingham Palace. It's like, well, that's London then, isn't it? Like, I'm sorry. It's funny that, isn't it? I don't think much British media does that, and I wonder if it's just because it's difficult to do here, because everything sort of touches each other, at least in England, where everything's so close together, it's all kind of contiguous.
Yeah.
We're in quite a far, the east and west of this country is quite farmlandy, which is where we are.
You also don't have that. I mean, I know we have counties, but you don't have sort of separate states. Distinctively what they are. So yeah, it's kind of harder to do. I remember there's a
Because what is it they say? It always cracks me up. I think it's in Batman and Robin where they say that Barbara
went to Oxbridge.
Barbara went to Oxbridge University.
Yeah, which is a term that Oxbridge is a term that's used to mean Oxford and Cambridge.
Yeah, that's why that's broken, because that is an existing term. Just because I'm pretty sure in Van Wilder 2: The Rise of Taj, which don't ask me why I've seen that. That's at Camford University, and it's like, okay, that's cheesy, but you haven't co-opted a real term.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Because like saying Oxbridge University, it's a bit like it's hard to think of a different example, but you've used something that already exists, and it's kind of
it's like saying, oh God, there's something on the tip of my tongue, I'm sure, but
I don't know, it's not exactly right, but it's like having a Spanish island called Holiday Island. You know what I mean? It's a little bit, not exactly, but it's like it's a descriptor. Yeah. So you put it in there as a generic term, and it's like, well, not particularly, I would imagine, to Americans, to be fair. Yeah. So it's not really in their discourse, whereas here it's a big part of the discussion about education and so on.
I don't really understand. It seems redundant to say that anyway, because it's like you're trying to create a thing that's not real.
I tell you what it is, and this is the best I can do. And people are going like, why don't you talk about the film? It's like having a school called Ivy League University. That's what it's like. It's a pre-existing descriptor. It's not a portmanteau, admittedly, but like it's like, well, no.
Like, why do it? You might as well just say the real thing at that point, because you're using two real places to make it into one thing. It's like, is that clever? Why don't you just say like Glockenshire University? You might as well just whatever.
You just fucking. At least Van Wilder 2: The Rise of Taj has, they went the other way. It's still stupid and bad, but
so he has acid in his. I mean, the thing is, again, like. This Joker is sort of chaotic in one sense and planned in another. It's like here, how does he know he's not going to scar Vicky Vale and or kill her by squirting acid at her?
Yeah, and is that supposed to have been what he's done to Jerry Hall? She's got a slightly bubbly face. That's
unclear as well. It's like, I don't.
Because was he going to try and quite kill her? Serial killer, isn't he?
Oh yeah. And that is supposed to be the point. Is that he's like, I mean,
that's a great bit of shtick where he pretends he's melting.
Yeah. That's the Jack Nicholson of it all, isn't it? That's quite.
Well, that's it. Even being Jack Nicholson, he's just great.
This is used a lot in promos when he turns around and goes, "Boo!" Like there. Like,
I'm secretly a panda.
The sound of all this is so etched in my brain. But yeah, look here. You've got a bit of Batman trying to turn his head, and the thing all rucks up around his face. But yeah, this is very Batman though. It's like, there's a thing, and but again, he's got a grappling gun that comes out like it faces forward, but then flicks to go.
It's the thing. It's kind of the James Bond thing of having a gadget that only works for that specific situation. I mean, that's got broad applications, I admit. Yeah, but it just happened to be the one that does the trick.
And that was just out the front, and it's like that is the thing. Like it's like helicopters coming into frame, and no one hears it till they're in frame. It's like the Batmobile's parked out there.
It's got a fucking turbine on it.
So she's like, your car. It's like, it's that one, the big black one with bat wings on it. Like,
by the way, that motherfucker has no clearance.
No, I mean that is such an impractical vehicle. It looks great.
Looks great bit of production design.
Oh god, yeah. And it's again, that sums up this film, and it's kind of like, in a way, I don't want it to care about the practical. I don't, the time.
This isn't that film.
No, and it's
Batman Begins is that film.
Yeah,
this is not that film. I think it takes place in this kind of fantastic world, and again, because I'm trying to give this more credit than I usually do. And I think I like to think it's a sign of maturity, but let's not get carried away. Because I used to just be, when I first started doing stuff with the internet, it was just kind of like, oh well, the thing that people do on the internet is be angry at stuff, and that's automatically funny. Yeah. It's not really true, is it? No. Or at least, and it's hard to be pushing 40 and sitting around screaming at a 30-year-old film. It's not a good look.
Yeah. I mean, look, I see all this stuff. Well, actually, we talked about, didn't we, in relation to Dark Knight, Batman Begins and everything. It's like using the Russian arm to film the car chase. It means they could, and purpose building a vehicle from the ground up that could do all those stunts. It's like means you get a much more dynamic. Like, this is fine, and I love the look of it, but it's like when it's moving, you can tell it's not moving that fast. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's really not. It's shot to sort of give an element to it, but and it has shields and stuff, so you can literally just leave it wherever and put shields up. which is a bit.
Presumably that's rotoscoped.
Yeah.
It looks like some kind of stop motion, maybe in a miniature. I don't know.
Yeah.
I always liked the look when it was armored.
It looks cool. Although that armor,
lobster or something.
the armor is redundant in the sense that like it can't be used in motion, right? So it's there as a sort of like turtle sticking its head in its shell because he could sit in it and put it up, but then he can't go anywhere. So it's like
it's sort of just trapped there.
It's like, what's that for, really?
Again, because it looks cool.
That's the thing as well. It's like, oh yeah, he puts in the weight into his belt, and then the belt sort of delivers him the right tensile strength. But it's like, what's round the back? And then when he falls off the back, it's just a belt. There's nothing there. So does the belt make it?
One thing I did when I wear, I've got like a tool belt for wear, for which you sit in. Like anything stuck on the back, good luck leaning against any wall or sitting down or anything.
Look here, when he lands and rolls off. Look, I know it's when he.
Oh, they just like sort of
there. Look,
shoot.
There's nothing on his back. There's nothing there.
It's
just a blank belt. It's like, where did all that shit come from?
This is kind of the RoboCop thing of just shoot him in the mouth, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then RoboCop, it's not flesh under RoboCop's mouth. I'm at pains to point out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just shoot him in the mouth. It's funny, isn't it? How with those kind of cowl setups, I would say with the mask on, Val Kilmer and Michael Keaton look very similar. They've got those kind of pouty lips.
Yes,
and stuff.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and they sort of go to pains in Batman Forever to dress him like Keaton's.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually.
Whereas when George Clooney comes on, it's just like, fuck it. That's a different guy. Like, come on.
I gather that was a very last minute cut. I have nothing against George. I actually think George Clooney gives good Bruce Wayne.
He's in the wrong movie.
Scenes.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that was that thing because he was such hot shit at the time. It's like, we'll put him in the biggest franchise in the world.
But he wasn't hot shit enough in the film world to say anything about it. It's like,
he was in that spot there. A few years later, when he's directed George Clooney.
Well, it almost feels as well like they just went across the lot and picked an actor because it's like he was doing ER in the day, running back to the thing and doing Batman, and it's like, were you just like, you? It's just kind of like you're here.
Well, it's
so
just such it's one of those lazy kind of zeitgeisty decisions, isn't it?
Yeah. I wish I mean, God, like,
that he forgot. He claimed to have forgotten he'd done it. A couple of years ago. I love that. It's just like, fair play to you, mate. Absolutely. And do you know what? You got away with fucking murder because that thing was dire. Like, fair play to you.
Didn't sink his career though, which is
absolutely not. Yeah, no, I got away with murder.
I like George Clooney. Again, someone I have actually seen work and been on set with, and
I got time for the.
Seems like a really lovely bloke. Yeah, well, he chatted to me briefly, but no, lovely guy, I think.
Hello, I'm George Clooney. I love your YouTube channel and that bald man you work with.
That's how George Clooney sounds, isn't it?
Hello. These are my confessions of a dangerous mind.
Right.
ER! Quickly, you're ill. Come into the ER. I'll give you free medicine because I'm Dr. I can't remember.
What's my name?
What's my name?
See, the cowl looks quite good there. I do think it looks very unrefined.
It's a statue though, because you can't do anything with it. Because Dark Knight goes to pains to do that, which at the time, like 22-year-old or whatever I was, nerd me was like, yes, exactly.
I never liked that decision.
No, I do. It doesn't look as good, but
I don't like the resulting thing, and I always like the Begin suit. Things the Begin suit in Begins is shown to work really well, and then at the start of Dark Knight, they're like, oh, he's really lumbering, and the way they cover it, and the fighting style's all very like slow and
shits his pants.
It's all, but it's kind of, I think, artificially slowed down so they can then say, oh yeah, here's a better one. And it's like, yeah, but in Begins it wasn't an issue. It's just you're only doing it because it's...
I liked it. I just addressed a long-standing thing for me because I just think having that...
I don't know. But then it's things, if you're going to address that, why don't you address him putting makeup on his eyes?
The thing is, what I liked was they always tastefully avoided that until fucking Dark Knight Rises when they just did it. It's like, dude, it's such a good thing of not showing the panda eyes but making it clear, and then in fucking that as a kid, as a definitely at least somewhat autistic child and adult, like the fucking eye makeup to me was such a bugbear. Like, but then now I'm just a bit like, you know what, fuck it, it's all a bit fantastic.
It's almost like,
in Dark Knight Rises it's unacceptable though because they go to pains to show how grown up it all fucking is. And
I mean, you're referring to the bit where he gets out of the bat and he's taking his thing off,
and presumably in that edit somewhere he's furtively wiped it off and done a fucking good job as well.
Well, because there's a behind the scenes on this, isn't there, where he's putting the cowl on and he's got the panda eye. You know, it's like he's made up all round. His eyes are like panda eyes, and that I think is. I don't see why they shy away from it. It's like, just show him doing it.
If you show him wiping, because it is going to look ridiculous, but if you show him wiping it off or something like it, because it's got to be part of
Batman has it, man. Like again, it's like just.
I'm quite into the. You remember Batman Dead End, the Sandy Cholera one. Mm-hmm. I liked that they gave him the white contacts. Yeah, that's cool. Because in Dark Knight they give it lip service with the sonar vision, quick flash, which is neat. I liked that as a quick visual reference. I liked it.
Again, that's all for me. That's grist for the mill of all undoing the thing of everything on his suit. Everything has to have he had to make that. And it's like in the Dark Knight, it's kind of hand waved as like, now he has this in his cowl. And
I think that series loses that because they go to pains to show the sonar, the directional mics in the ears, and everything has a function.
That's what I think. That's sort of thrown out with Dark Knight. It's like, and he's got a motorbike built into the front of the car. It's like, why? That's a bridge
I know. And it's like, because that then I think you mentioned this before. That therefore assumes that bike was there the whole time.
It was either there the whole time or he reverse engineered it in. Either way, you're undoing the whole thing of like, it's a military
and just
vehicle.
Leaving the tumbler somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, wait, is that not? This is made by Bruce Wayne. Wait, what?
Well, it self-destructs, doesn't it? It's got a self-destruct.
Not very well though. It just sort of goes like. It's like, you nailed that one, mate. I guess you got away with it.
You still be fine. Like, I'm sorry, you still find shrapnel and bits all over the place. Like, this is a military vehicle. Like. Yeah, anyway.
And Boris the Blades walking around in his coat. There's a deep cut for you.
Yeah, true. That's a nice coat. Anyway, we're not talking about
Sneaky
that.
Sneaky fucking Cossack. Anyway, that's a whole other thing.
So presumably he drugs or knocks out Vicky Vale.
He just chins her one. He does the same thing to Rachel, doesn't he?
Rachel's already poisoned. He does. He gives her a sedative.
He gives her a sedative.
Yeah. And then Alfred has to bundle her into the back of the car. You know the worst for wear. You know, but
it's that old man just throwing a young woman in the back of a car.
Well, I like that a thing's made of it as well, which is that he's like, take Rachel home, like sort of thing. It's like there's a through line. They don't just go. Oh yeah, it's because in this it's like, well, how did she get home?
I thought that was code for throw her in a ditch.
But in that, it's like because he has a big, he has an argument with Alfred about it as well. It's like, she's downstairs, she needs blah blah blah. And he's like. And because he's having a go at him about driving in the way, there's some character moment there, which is nice. There's a thing made of it. Whereas in that, it's just like, I'll bring up my. He just brings his as well. Like in the moment, if you don't cut away from that, he goes, like raises his arm, brings his cape up. She's like, you gonna do something?
Yeah, because when it's done as punctuation, that's great. But what you have to then show is him going,
sticking chloroform over her face or whatever. It's not a good look. It's like. Let it, just don't fight it. Like,
hey, does this smell like chloroform?
Having also just spoken about lipstick and things that are laced with, chemicals. Like,
yes.
Presumably you then had to drug her, or like you say.
When I do it, it's not creepy.
Or we put her in like a chokehold or something. Like
sleeper hold.
Don't fight it. Go to sleep.
Or just chinned her. Like, bang.
It's the more efficient way, I suppose. I mean, it is a bit.
Well, that's the thing. It's too busy, sort of looking cool. That's its whole. It's all. I find it very style over substance, which is Tim Burton's kind of thing. My favourite Tim Burton thing, as I said before, is Ed Wood.
Yeah, right.
It's a really great film, and again, he's got a really great in terms of directing actors for comedy and stuff. He's got a real lightness of touch. I mean, and obviously started out on a Pee Wee Herman movie and stuff. And when because Edward Scissorhand, for example, and as we've discussed, like my other favourite Tim Burton film is Mars Attacks.
Okay, yeah.
Mars Attacks is really funny. It's like this really kind of sharp, cynical, satirical, subversive thing. You know?
That background outside is very flat. Because it is just a
drape.
Drape, yeah.
She's got look. She a trainee Jedi. She's got
woke up and braided her hair for some reason.
He punched her out. And braided her.
I woke up with this in my hair. I can't get it out. What the hell?
I want to play Star Wars.
He's about to. Look, he shoves her in a seat there as well. It's like, right now, shut up. It's quite like.
Yeah, kind of an a-hole, right?
Yeah, I mean that's not really a great look either, is it? And he's going to tell her he's Batman the night after, knocking her out in the back. Why don't you tell her there? Like,
I'm Bruce Wayne. Straight into the
his
chokehold.
coat up, and under the coat is
Or it's a napkin soaked in chloroform that says "I'm Bruce Wayne" that he just smashes on her face.
I thought you'd get that from that. No.
No.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So
Okay, here's
right.
a story about how someone gets up and eats breakfast and goes downstairs and kisses someone. That suit's horrible. As well.
Oh yeah,
You're a
it's
billionaire, mate. Like, why are you buying that crap?
those kind of wide-breasted. Is this like it? Because that kind of came back, but that presumably is more of a kind of 30s.
It's a
cut,
30s
isn't
thing
it?
that
It's
then
sort of-
became an 80s thing. So that's the
Yeah.
funny thing, is because they're riffing on a time period that actually informed the 80s fashion and 90s.
It's kind of high waisties and the sort. It looks like something Jimmy Stewart wearing.
Niles Crane. It's that big,
Yes,
hugely
yes.
baggy
balloon
double-breasted-
trousers and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
huge shoulder pads.
pantaloons going on. You know, and
High-waisties.
slightly too high rise, too
Well,
high
and the
cut.
Joker, the Joker and all the kind of mobsters are wearing straight up fucking zoot suits. Like,
Yeah. It's the excess. It's that is a whole thing. It's about excess. It's like too much material. Like, I can afford more, and then austere times you have skinny lapels, and because it's
But that 1950s cut where it's all very.
But then the funny thing is, it's like the people with money now have the really well cut. So everything's cut and tailored and draped properly and everything. And it's like, but then that goes too far because you have to show that off. It's things like working cuffs on suits. People undo the button, but then that wasn't enough, so they undid two. And it's like, so you're just undoing your cuff to show that you have working buttonholes. It's like, come on, man. Should be about for you. It shouldn't be about showing off. But yeah. See, he's very aggressive here when he like grabs her. Like, it's poor old Vicky Vale gets grabbed and thrown around by.
It's just a right shit. The other thing as well. Yeah, that's sorry. I totally fucking torpedoed my own discussion of Batman and Bond. It's not just. It's the fucking girl. It's not just the cars and stuff. It's the woman.
Yeah.
And also, who's going to be the next Batman? That's been a thing ever since Michael Keaton kicked it, left.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, who's going to be the next one? It shares the same fascinations. So it's like, there's no term for it. They never say the Batman girl, but there was, because now it's Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
But it was Michelle Pfeiffer, then Nicole Kidman, and then kind of Uma Thurman, but then also
what's her name? Elle Macpherson is in Batman and Robin. She's the love interest.
Is she?
Barely, but yeah, she's in it. Yeah.
like,
Oh, wow, he's not in the tradition of,
works so well
here's
last
another
time.
Australian. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, Elle Macpherson's the.
because I think they gave up kind of because I don't know if they even bother. They kind of bother hand wave away Vicky Vale in Batman Returns, don't they? They say there's like a line of dialogue or something.
There's a few. So there's a bit where he's with Selena Kyle and he says, "So Vicky, blah blah," and she goes, "Air hostess or whatever," and that's so she is the Vicky, like really, like that's the sort of. So that's to say more about her than it is about Vicky Vale. But then he says, "Who let Vicky Vale into the Batcave?" But that's more a fourth wall breaking. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, we know.
Kind of thing, yeah.
So I'm not even sure if they even bother to do that with Chase Meridian. Like by the time of Batman and Robin, like
I don't think so,
because they had that odd thing. And again, who's going to be Batman? Is this bit? It's like Doctor Who as well. It's like this thing. Who's going to be the next Batman?
Oh, that sort of discussion drives me up the wall, especially in relation to Bond, because people then
Everyone's
just
always
list
wrong.
the same three British actors, and it's like, that's boring.
They love fucking like Doctor Who. It's like, it's got to be Jason Isaacs. No, it's not. That's a movie star.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
never a movie star. It's
Yeah,
never
yeah.
who you think it is.
No.
Like I think the only time I really wanted it to be Peter Capaldi, and it was. It's the only time I would never.
Yeah.
I'd never have gone to the bookies over it. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like,
sure. I mean, Pierce Brosnan was sort of a bit like that, but that's only because he'd
Well, he'd flirted with it, hadn't he? Like for,
people talk about like Henry Cavill had it in the same sort of, in a sense. Although I'm not saying Henry Cavill will be
Well, 'cause
Bond, but it's that thing of like he got auditioned for it and came close to getting it, but didn't get it.
Superman, you mean? Or Bond?
No, Bond.
because he
He did
screen
do
tested
it with
for J.J.
Superman as well.
Abrams,
Yes,
didn't
of course,
he?
yeah. But I mean, I mean, Brosnan did get Bond and then didn't get it, and then so it was kind of like that. All right, that was set up.
I
as a thing.
can't imagine like Cavill as Bond because he's got the kind of smooth public school RP kind of dark guy.
Yeah.
But he's like fucking. But Craig's like a rugby build, right? But Cavill's like a sort of cloning experiment. He's like a specimen. I don't know if he's too.
I think, it's funny because I think he's played everything around it, and like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and everything's great. He's good in Mission Impossible as a bad guy agent. I mean, American but agent.
Oh, is he American in that?
Yeah, but it's I think he's too kind of. in a similar way to how Brosnan was, but not quite. He's like, if you drew a cartoon James Bond, that's kind of what it would look like, but it's not. It's too surface level, and I don't say that to dismiss Cavill as a.
Yeah, I think all the pieces are there, but I just, and again, my thing is, I know, Craig, because Craig's not particularly tall, but he's. You know,
he's not that short.
He's bulky though,
shorter than I am.
Yeah. But he's not like 6'6" or anything.
No.
What was Henry Cavill? He's quite tall, is he? Or like...
Cavill is like 6'1", 6'2", I think.
Oh, okay, so he's not massively tall.
I think. I mean, he's just a bit taller than I am.
Just his hugeness.
Yeah,
it's like I don't buy Bond. It's sort of like, but then it's kind of like the thing of, do you have Lance Henriksen as a Terminator, or do you have Arnold Schwarzenegger? And we know how we ended up.
That's different.
But the spy should. But I'm just saying the spy should be a bit more nondescript, maybe.
I think the thing with like what I mean,
I'm the one who doesn't know shit about Bond.
I think,
as well, by the way,
to bring it back to Batman in a way, I think Bale's physique in Batman Begins is right in that he shouldn't be cut. I don't want to see like Men's Health fitness magazine Bond or Batman. I want to see functional. So like,
well, that's because Affleck was a fucking unit as well, and it's like he's too kind of big for him.
I don't think he was.
Dude, he was huge. He was like he did all the nutrition and shit. He was massive.
Yeah, I know, but there's no actual like. Anyway, we'll get that.
Oh, sure, whatever. Okay, fine. Well, even if it is just the suit making him look like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's not right. It's because they wanted the Dark Knight Returns back.
Yeah.
They didn't.
But I mean, Bale's like, when you see Bale like doing his training and stuff like that in the montage where it is just him, and it's like he has a sort of rugby build. You know, it's not chiseled, but it's bulky.
Big. Yeah. He's not like six packy. You know, he's kind of
he's just big, and it's similar with Craig in Casino Royale. He's hench, but he's not like he's not dieting and taking stupid supplements.
Yeah, no, he's got that kind of like,
he's not Wolverine.
It's the kind of big size you get on an ordinary bloke.
Yeah,
he's still cut. Like,
but
not
don't get me wrong. That's
true. Because Hugh Jackman was all like dehydrating himself and shit, wasn't he?
And it's like that's. But again, that's a.
That's the thing you do to look good in a handful of shots in one film, and you can't maintain, or you will die of dehydration.
And veins pop in and all that stuff, and it is to get that comic book look. But I think someone like I just think looking functional rather than unobtainable, and I think Cavill kind of for Superman, I think that's right in that he should be almost impossibly well built and cut and all that stuff. But for James Bond, no. Right?
Well, Carl Urban had like a Dredd workout and got really tonk for Dredd, and it's like,
why?
You're under the I get it as a kind of holistic approach to the character. I get that. I think there's something quite method in
there's
that.
There's a functional thing as well to actually having to perform.
And the size of your shoulders and stuff inside, but you are caked in armour, so there's no way you can tell.
Yeah.
And there's in the 90s people like to draw Dredd as a big bodybuilder, and it's like, well, really, he's kind of should be a wiry kind of cop dude, really.
Yeah.
And ironically, Carl Urban comes off as that because he's under all that armour.
Yeah. I mean, the lot was made of the suit in that, like, it's sort of done to look like the comic book in the sense of like it's got muscles on it, but they're kind of stuck on and they're not really.
Yeah, he's got the kind of sculpted, and of course, there's much said of the nipples and stuff later.
Yeah,
but the ears kind of sculpted because I like the one in Batman Returns where it's got those kind of the six pack made of scales.
Yeah, it's sort of almost
plates.
It echoes the armor of the Batmobile. You know, it's kind of got that kind of. Yeah, it's what is it taken off? It's like the front of a train, one of those Art Deco trains or whatever. You know, it's like that. Sort of, and it does feel more like it's almost like he's bio-organic in that he sort of blends into the thing around him. Whereas, in this, it's like clearly meant to look human, but not, whatever. Also, I remember a big thing for me as a kid was like he's all black, which was not.
Yeah, well, the Affleck one has done the kind of grey suit, but it's kind of like, kind of, I guess.
I like it. I mean, I don't
mind it. I don't hate it, but yeah, it's kind of on paper thing, but. Because even like I really, when Batman Begins came out, I wanted him to have a grey and black kind of cloth looking thing. But I suppose it's the way these things they like to hide behind a lot. Like, oh no, well that won't photograph, and it's like, well no, because you've decided not to make that choice. Is what that means. Like you could make it photograph if you put the work into the design of it.
It's a weird rut that they got into, and I think they thought it couldn't work because why would he have that? Because he's supposed to be in the shadows, and it's like, but no, actually, it makes you more likely to fit into the shadows.
And again, at least Batman Begins goes to pains to say, oh well, actually, it's this kind of suit that they built for the art, and it's kind of like, oh right, And I'd rather have Batman completely in black than Batman in grey but with no black pants, and I'm saying that in a completely sincere way.
Fair. I suppose fair. I mean, if you're going to go to that stage, then why? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I quite like the idea that it's a grey suit, but he's just the adornments like the cowl and the cape are black. The idea is the cape's supposed to wrap around him and cover up things. The yellow symbol can do one. I mean,
well, Frank Miller said that it's designed so people aim at it, and it's like, okay.
I mean, with that,
man, you hear about all those murders where people get shot in the chest because of their t-shirts. You know what I mean? I suppose the thing is really, if that is a bright yellow symbol in the darkness, and it's the only thing you can see, okay, I kind of.
But then why attract anyone to anything?
Well, yes, I suppose the alternative is your big chin. I want to arm your face if you can.
That's the thing.
If you can build like a fucking submarine, arm your face.
I mean, I never understood that about Batman in the sense of like, why can you see his chin?
It depends on the interpretation, doesn't it? And there are different versions. There's like super realistic ones and not, and I get that. Because I think the thing that Frank Miller did well in year one was that it really heavily emphasizes the ninja-y stuff. And the kind of the theatrics and the magic of it, which is what Batman Year One ran with. Like, it's creating this idea that you're a supernatural monster and stuff like that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But then you're not going to achieve that when you've got a bloke's face or bloke's chin.
Well, it's always such a leap where, like, when they report back to the police, they always say it's like a 9-foot tall bat monster, and it's like. It's a fucking geezer, mate.
You saw his mouth
in a strongman suit. Yeah. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I mean, I think, one could make. I suppose you could go to sort of. You could say, it's so that he can add attachments. Like if he needs breathing apparatus or something, you can put it on there. But it does beg the question because he quite often gets gassed in the comics and in the cartoon, and it's like, well, that wouldn't happen if you just covered the one remaining bit of.
And there's tons of people in the DC universe that do cover their faces up with shit. Well,
And you don't want anyone to know who you are either, so it's kind of look at him. Look, he does that.
That's so weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I quite like my version of Batman. Right, he'd have Bruce Wayne would have a really distinctive mole on his top lip.
Well, Kilmer does have a mole, doesn't he?
Oh, of course he does. Okay, fine.
Sorry.
So big mole on his top lip, but rather than cover his whole face, when he goes out as Batman, he sticks on a moustache. He's just got this massive Tom Selleck moustache that he glues on. And much like the eye makeup, when he takes the cowl off, the moustache just goes. Maybe it's fixed in the cowl. This moustache just dangling off.
Well, like, what's the kick-ass, Nicolas Cage?
Oh, Big Daddy.
Big Daddy's got a moustache.
Yeah. There's some Reddit. Actually, I was going to talk about... we're going to do 28 Days Later after this, and there's a link between kind of John Murphy's music and the character of Big Daddy, because they reprise a track from Sunshine into.
I just noticed you see the Batmobile in the background there, look on the plinth. That's quite nicely done. It's got depth to it.
Like, I wonder if that's is that a forced perspective? Is that a miniature or something?
I
or is
don't
that
know.
the full size? Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, this my big problem with this film is that it's and it's similar to Batman Returns. It's skewed so heavily into art design.
Yeah,
and Tim Burton is like this really strong visualist. He does have a great mind. I just think I don't find him to be a particularly rounded filmmaker. And the irony is when he made Ed Wood, which is something about which he was very passionate, which is very un-Tim Burton-y. It's a really, really great movie. It's a really great kind of representation of a place and time and everything. And
Big Fish is often given that kind of.
Yeah, I didn't mind Big Fish actually. Out of the modern Tim Burton stuff, I didn't mind that. I mean, like his Planet of the Apes film is just terrible.
Yeah.
And things like the Willy Wonka film as well. It's just like, what are you doing? Like,
Alice in Wonderland was on the other day. We watched some of that.
And went and saw that with my then girlfriend, and because she really liked Tim Burton.
It's so green screeny that.
Christ. Well, exactly. Yeah. And then they made another one.
Yeah.
Because we were all begging for that.
Yeah. I don't know which one we saw the end of the other night, but I wasn't.
That's one of those films where they do a sequel and they just look exactly the same.
Suit up.
Here we go, the suit up. And they really lean into that as this series progresses. But
eyes.
I do love a good suit up. Yeah, the Morticia Adams eyes. Love a suit up. The best suit up in all history is Commando, obviously.
I think, yes. I think the best...
Oh, my great!
The best use of it...
Hey, I had 3 more payments on that game.
Oh, Gil. Oh, my door. I bought that from home.
You didn't do anything.
It also says like those gangsters were just stood on that thing, like waiting.
Just waiting, yeah.
So he doesn't even go in and do this. He's not even there because it's revealed like afterwards he's just remote control.
And therefore he's not responsible for their deaths.
or something or whatever.
None of the balls. Oh.
like somehow the Batmobile survives that. I know it's in its armor, but
that should be covered. Well, yeah, because the armor's come off, but the car should be just covered in guts. There's blood everywhere. Big bit of intestine draped on it.
I believe it's a Corvette underneath, isn't it? It certainly had a V8 Chevy engine, I think.
Right, you are. Okay, cool. Yeah, I would never would have. I mean, because that's a fucking great practical thing, isn't it? Like with the turbine on the back, and it's a really great... Because it's a kind of... the total redesign of the Batmobile, and it's this kind of Art Deco, but it's got like jet engines on it and stuff.
It's brilliant.
And fins.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, it doesn't make sense, but it sort of doesn't have to in a way.
His face is so fat in that mask because it's about 2 inches of rubber all the way around.
Yeah, it really shows up when it's not lit right. But see, I like my favourite use of the suit now coming up is once he crashes the plane and he goes into the cathedral, and it's all kind of, he's a bit messed up and he's got the blood and that and it's a bit dishevelled. I think it works really well, and it's lit really well because he's in a bloody church and it's gothic and it's kind of suddenly it works. I think.
Well, in terms of making a comic book film, I think this one, because not a lot. I think Ang Lee is the one person, and I think he went too far, who really tried to create a living comic, which I think is sort of a mistake because you're adapting the thing instead of just and I do think that was a noble effort. The resulting film is not particularly fun to watch. This does. They spend a lot of time leading characters up to doing a pose. So then they stand still and do a pose that's well lit, so it looks like a comic panel, and I respect that a lot. I think there's a lot to be said for it.
Sure.
That wouldn't work necessarily in Batman Begins, say, so doing something different tonally, but in a kind of art direction-led film such as this, to have him, because the minute ago when you get out of the car and he sweeps and looks up, and then the spotlight comes on him, and it's like, it's a single kind of panel.
Thing is the plane going into the movie, right?
Yeah, I really hate that. But it is, again, it's an attempt to do a sort of comic book panel brought to life, which
I think the good thing about it, like you look at something like Begins, when he is crouched on a gargoyle overlooking the city and stuff like that, there's so much more weight to it because he's like, not that I necessarily think this is something you have to have all the time, but it's like you kind of know how he got up there, you know how he can get down, he's sort of doing it for a reason, which is that he's sort of listening into the city.
Spelunking.
Yeah, well, exactly, but it's like, but there's kind of like, it's there for a reason. Whereas,
they go out of their way with that, I think, and I think perhaps that was a reaction, that was a course correction against the tone of this series, I imagine. And I think people were, after they kind of ran this series into the ground, people were hungry for an about face, I think.
It's interesting where we're at now because it's sort of almost come to a similar place, and obviously Matt Reeves is Batman. Is it Matt Reeves doing it?
Matt Reeves, yes.
He is doing it. But, they're shooting it now. I think it's going to be an interesting one, and it's got interesting casting from what I can gather, and it's kind of like, but then you get to the point, it's like, are they doing that because in the past that kind of casting has ended up working? I worry when it's like, oh, that was unexpected, and it's like, are you doing it to be unexpected now?
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm still not giving them a free pass on that, though. I do like what they've cast, who they've cast so far. Like Robert Pattinson, I think is a real.
They've got a good cast together. Yeah, it's a bit. I love how everyone always shits the bed every time they cast anyone in a Batman thing. I mean, the way people actually like such babies over Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be he was in some romantic comedies, and he was in that gay film that you just call that gay film. Like, Black Batman. It's like, what do you think is going to... What does that even mean? What do you think's going to happen? The fact he was in a film about gay stuff, you think they've... just trust them to know who they've cast. You know what I mean?
Frustrates me no end as well with people. I get it to an extent. The casting thing is like, my personality has to fit with what you're doing. I do understand that, but at the same time, it is acting. It's like this idea that just because you played a latent homosexual cowboy in a film by Ang Lee, you therefore cannot play the Joker.
Why are you bringing that up? What does that even mean?
No, because he plays that. It's like he can't play anything else. It's like, right, so why do actors ever do other films then?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Like, what?
It's called acting. You
didn't say that when he was casted, when he was announced in Brokeback Mountain. You weren't going like, yeah, but he was in 10 Things I Hate About You. As a sort of
he plays a straight person.
It's like he can't play.
Fucking idiot.
Well, I mean, that does then lead us into the whole thing about what's happened with Scarlett Johansson. Anyway, let's not get political, but that is a hot topic at the moment. In that, like, should non-trans people play trans?
Oh, is that a thing? Is she playing trans person?
Well, she was cast in a trans role. Said how how excited she was about it, and then she got slapped down in the press because she wasn't trans, so she quit.
I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
and that's anyway.
Well, anyway,
I don't particularly come down on that in that way, but I do say this is that acting is acting.
To digress, I think the thing with Robert Pattinson is, he was in Twilight. Oh, that's stupid. And it's like, well, he just did The Lighthouse, and he's done a bunch of stuff.
I have huge respect for the choices he's made as an actor.
Yeah, I reckon he'd be he's like, hey, he's got the look for Batman. I think he'd be a decent Batman. They've gone a bit younger.
He's still. I mean, the funny thing is, he's our age or older, isn't he?
No, he's a touch younger. I think.
Is he?
I think he's a touch younger. He was in the Harry Potter movies, and
yeah, but either way, I think. He's still got a youthful look,
Well, they've just done, their incumbent Batman was in his 50s, and they've gone back the other way. Well, that was just dumb because Zack Snyder likes The Dark Knight Returns.
He's 33. Sorry,
33. So therefore, he had to be old, and it's like, well, that doesn't make any sense in your story. You just think The Dark Knight Returns is cool, so you've shoehorned it into this series. I
know, and it's like there's no history. Again, it's like that was so many weird decision makes. Like your Robin's dead. But that joke killed him.
So they're kind of casting. I think Rob Pattinson. What I will say is, I'm a bit numb to the idea of yet another Batman in such a short space of time.
If he hits it out the park, I mean, he's got Tenet coming out this year, Batman next year. He could be.
Is Pattinson in Tenet?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
I know very little about Tenet, actually.
So do I. I did see the trailer, but I didn't really get it, and then I was like, really enjoy it. It's got a very sort of Inception-y vibe to it, but
yeah, I kind of.
Hi guys and girls, it's Duncan Casey here. Don't adjust your YouTubes. This is not an error, although it is to cover up an error. For some reason, the audio for the next 5 minutes in the commentary itself started skipping, and there's nothing I can do. I've been back through the original source audio, and it does it. It's really frustrating. But rather than have to go back and record an entirely new commentary, I just thought I would throw this in here to cover it up. Don't worry if you're syncing up with the rest of the film. This should run smoothly, hopefully anyway. But I just thought I'd throw this in here. So, what I'm basically talking over now is the bat plane being shot down and the ensuing climb up the tower between with the Joker and Vicky Vale and Batman following behind. It's a moment I quite like in the film, to be honest, and I'm sorry Richard isn't here to share his opinion on it with you, but we will kick in again around the 45-minute mark, so if you don't just want to hear me talking now, by all means skip ahead to that. Again, my apologies for that being necessary. This was just dumb luck, I think. But anyway, it's a moment I really like, and I really like that they put that, when you think about it, putting it in the kind of the first Batman film in this way is quite daring in a way, to have a sort of bloodied and bruised Batman pursuing the villain and everything. I think it's quite good, and I think visually it works quite well. I think certainly Burton, once he gets into that kind of gothic, not that the film itself isn't gothic, but certainly once he gets into that kind of that milieu, when he's dealing with religious imagery and all that kind of thing, it's quite I think it works really well, and I really like it. I like him following out the sort of she's very kind of princess like, because she's wearing a white dress and she's been dragged up a tower by the villain, and Nicholson and Peters I believe had seen Phantom of the Opera and wanted to inject that into the film, so that's ultimately what we get. It's a bit on the nose, obviously. If Richard was here, he'd say that. He'd say, oh, it's fucking... That's not a very good impression of Richard, but he's right. I do get it. It's not particularly subtle, but it is a comic book film, and it is a Batman film, and the theatrical and all that works. I think it's really cool. I really like it. Once you put aside the idea that Batman is killing people and he's doing uncharacteristic things and things we don't want him to do, the world that he's existing in and the imagery and all that is very consistent, I think. And sort of, I think as well, like now, yeah, and I guess even at the time, it was all the kind of analog technology that's involved kind of works really well, kind of keeps it quite timeless, and certainly this ending as well, it's still timeless. I think it still works really, really well, and it's quite really well put together. So yeah, obviously you've got Batman fighting the Joker's goons. There's some really great shots, I think, of Batman kind of fighting them and rolling on the floor and diving off things, and they really get like great use out of that Batsuit, which is, you know, by most people's standards quite a clunky item, but I think they've managed to get the best out of it here in kind of moving it and getting it moving, and it looks quite, it does look quite, what's the word, articulated, or it does look like you can move in it, even if it was still quite restrictive. I think they managed to get the stunt performers to kind of move it and make it work really well. So yeah, you've got all that. You've got the silly extendo thing out of his glove. I'm not sure if that part has now been cut, but let's talk about that anyway. That's ridiculous. Obviously, it doesn't make any sense, but whatever. I really think they were pushing the whole Indiana Jones gag of someone diving at him with, or doing lots of martial arts and then him just punching someone out. I mean, it really was in that era of you know, we liked our heroes to essentially be quite smug and not have to try and just win with a smug grin on their face, which is kind of what happens. And then yeah, he obviously throws the guy down the bell tower by his boots, and he falls down and dies badly. There you go. Well, I am going to bring you back to the commentary now because I'm nearly at the 5-minute mark. Thank you so much for sticking with me if you did, and we're going to go back in now. You don't get it because you don't understand. It's like, no, we do know those things. We just don't think they're valid.
Because he pulled out his book with a post-it note and it's kind of like, issue 12, 939, you fucking idiot. And it's just like,
I know. And it's
oh, Jesus.
Mate. Again, I mean, those sorts of people I do feel sorry for in a lot of ways, but it's like, yeah, you're right. They're the kind of people who will end up taking their rage out. Like,
well, that guy just vanished from the internet, which makes me worry for his well-being because he seemed like a...
Well, and others, because
and the well-being of others, yeah, absolutely. We could not recover the footage when we made the live show, but, which I kind of quite wanted, but I'm sort of glad I didn't exploit this poor man's mental illness, really. Yeah. But yeah, real militant, scary, and one of the dividing lines is between this and the Nolan thing. Yeah,
which I don't really understand, because I do think, I mean, I think it begins in this. There is crossover. There's intersectionality, to use a common parlance, but that is there, you know. I mean, there isn't. It doesn't throw this out and do the exact opposite. It's just
when it doesn't say it doesn't no longer exist, and you know, it doesn't wipe it from history or anything. Exactly. You know,
it's just another thing that gets to exist alongside it, which is fine. Like,
well, yeah, why not both? Like, you know, it's. I know what side my bread's buttered, but I don't hate you for liking this or whatever. Like, if you do,
I still like this. Like I say, it's not as substantive. Don't get me wrong. I mean, and it doesn't. I don't like for what it says about Batman. Like, I don't feel that it's particularly Batman-y, but I do like it. There's a lot of, isn't there some problem with the optical processing with this shot at the end? So his suit suddenly turns like,
oh, so much like the green Superman suit.
Yeah, it's like there's, for some reason, some of the reverse or whatever it is, there's shots of Joker where it's like it's red. Look, his
see, this is at this Die Hard and RoboCop and this have bad man falling off a thing.
Yeah,
effects, whereas Die Hard has that really fantastic one.
That's how you had to kill your. I love that. So when he goes, whoop, like just having so much fun. Like, even though he nearly died, it's like he doesn't. And that's the thing. That is it. I mean, again, we shouldn't kill the Joker. This was just the thing. Where it's like, oh, you just kill the bad guy.
And they wanted to. I think the idea for Batman 5, Batman Triumphant, was they were going to have Scarecrow, Joker, gas Batman, and he was going to see.
Yeah, it was going to be like that trial thing where
he would have looked way older and everything. Then there was talk of having, because in this kind of strange continuity of these where they sort of bastardise origin stories, they wanted to have Harley Quinn but being Joker's daughter or something. Right. Was one of the things that was floated, and I think at the time they wanted Madonna for it and stuff. It's just like, oh my god. I mean, I definitely would use my sliders technology to go watch those weird films.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of those are the kind of things where I'd love to see them happen, but it's like, but would I? I mean, I don't know, because you get things like that Crisis crossover thing, which is great, but again, it's that there's not enough weight there. We're not saying like this is now going to be the cinematic version of these characters forever or for the next however long, you know, and you've got to invest 10 years of your life in this stuff. It's just a bit of fun, really.
Right, I wonder if because I guess one of the things is Jack Nicholson perhaps wouldn't have come back anyway. They were lucky to have him, so kill him anyway. Because I mean, and also as far as Jack Nicholson, I know the real comparison that's made is him and Brando, but I suppose a more apt one would be him and Hackman. And he's probably looking at, you know, the diminishing returns of the Superman series, perhaps, and
maybe.
You know,
I mean, Hackman technically didn't really come back for 2, did he? I mean, he
yes, true. His body double with the wig did.
Yeah,
and he obviously he's not in 3. We've got good old Robert Vaughn.
That's a nice bit of sort of cinematic language in that, you know, he's each rung, he's getting closer and closer to, you know.
There you go. It's quite brief.
Would he scream on the way down?
That looks like that Joker looks like the cartoon from the side of his helicopter.
Yeah. Would he scream on the way down? That's the only thing. Is it?
Yeah, because surely he'd be laughing.
Well, that's what Heath Ledger's one did, right? And that made more sense when he's just like.
So there's that sad kind of hand wave in Dark Knight Rises novelisation. It's kind of like the Joker is in a hospital upstate and has not caused any problem since. And it's kind of like.
That would kill them. Like, they just literally stopped on that thing. He's like,
both dead. Yeah. Or his armoured suit saves him. She's just snapped in half.
Yeah.
That's why she's not in the third one.
Oh, yeah.
The second one, sorry.
Yeah. The way he somehow made a dent in the concrete, or like broken the concrete, but he's not in a big bag of mush.
Just purple suit and guts.
It's like on the way down, he must have set that laugh bag up thing. It's like,
wait a minute.
Click.
It's the in Toys, isn't it? When Robin Williams' dad's buried, he's buried with a bag of laughs in it. I want to talk about Toys one day. It's a really fascinating film, and I think the only bad thing about it, really, and I hate to say this, is Robin Williams, because he's at height Robin Williams, at peak Robin Williams, so it's full of improvised shtick that just doesn't work. Because I think the rest of the film is really great, and in terms of, regardless of what you think of it, production design on Toys is incredible.
Oh yeah,
like,
I haven't seen it in a long time. I saw it in the cinema. I remember going to the cinema.
Oh, you did? That's when we used to rent it all the time. Me and my brother really loved it. And I'm not saying it's the best movie in the world, but it's a really fascinating film.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And it's got Jamie Foxx as like, I think he has like one line or something in it.
Oh right,
yeah, okay. So it's strange. No, there's an alternate cut where he dies, right?
Well, not an alternate cut. Like in this, he's shown to seemingly die in a.
Oh right, yeah, he looks all dead,
he's hit by the car, and then he's sort of like, and he's just like slumping in the garbage.
Wasn't there a version where I thought there's a version where he gets killed by the Joker gas, though, isn't there? Or is that, is that a false memory?
No, it's just that it sort of looks like he sort of is, but then he isn't.
He gets a railway spike through the head.
For no reason.
He just goes Phineas Gage and he's fine.
He gave us a symbol. He gave you.
So we've decided to endorse this nuts vigilante. But hey, the classic Batman cooperated with the police. I'm just,
that's fine, and it's an okay way to end. My preferred thing is because throughout this, he's still a vigilante. He's not really. Gordon sees him and goes like, "Oh my god, oh my god,
oh my god,"
and then. But he's not. It's like he's not shown in public saving the day, is he, or anything like that? So it's kind of like I almost wish he did stay anonymous and like they didn't have the symbol. And it's like he didn't have to end on that. It could have still been an urban legend that no one really knows anything about. I want to get in that car. Look, it's got champagne and everything.
Look at that, champagne.
Champagne, madam. It's real velour.
I think Michael Gough and Pat Hingle are the only ones that stick out the whole series, right?
Yes.
By the end, because I think, but Pat Hingle in particular, I think in Batman and Robin, does he just sort of get a couple of shots or something?
No, I mean Poison Ivy gets him, doesn't she?
Oh yes.
Hello, pretty lady.
God, that film is just so freaking boring, man.
It's nuts to think that we go from this to that in what 8 years?
It's
97.
97, yeah. It's such a downward slope.
97, yeah.
97,
Sorry, Frank.
Yeah. He won't mind. Scouse cunt. No.
They do, though. Don't they, though?
he minds now.
Fuck you. Yeah. Yes, I mean, him standing on top of the thing.
That's a strange first credit, isn't it? This is like things they forgot from the beginning of the film.
Well, I guess so. I mean, I guess that is how it is because it's
William Hootkins.
Yeah, Hootkins is
Derek Meddings.
Yeah,
Great Derek
There's
Meddings.
there's a crossover.
We haven't talked about Derek Meddings or bloody Danny
Anton.
Elfman.
No,
Which are really
of course.
big names in this.
Well, Danny Elfman, this really made him, didn't it? I think there was
I
that
think
thing
got a
he
lot
had
to add regards to Danny Elfman.
I think he
you know
had to
what I mean?
play the march, wasn't there? That thing of like Peters didn't want him because of course he didn't, because why would he want a good thing
Yeah, right.
in his film? Chris Brock, the location manager, not to be confused with comedian Chris Rock.
He dropped the B and became big in cabinet.
I said it. Location manager. Anyway, I can't do Chris Rock. Anyway, Danny Elfman, yeah. So he had to play him the march to convince him to do it or whatever. And it's
Right.
like,
Okay. Oh, that's a very, very famous piece of music. Hey, you know,
it is good to arrogantly say years later when he did Justice League that there's only one Batman theme.
Yeah.
And then to not really use it.
But
So we use it.
I
then.
wonder if I've got a feeling that perhaps that was mandated. Like
Possibly, but
because if you've hired him and you have,
But again,
because they
it's
want
like,
the name attached and
they made a big thing of that in the lead up to Justice League, and then when it's in the film, it's done in a sort of like it's just a sort of
because they get him to reprise
thing.
John Williams as well, don't they?
That's what I mean. But it's sort of like it's like where's you just go anyway. Here's the other thing, and it's like
Yeah.
what? Like, and then the Batman theme's sort of there, sort of not.
Yeah,
Do
it's
it
cake
properly.
and eat it, I
Like,
think.
do it.
Because there's things with Danny Elfman. Danny Elfman alongside Tim Burton, latter day Tim Burton. It's just kind of like, well, I hope you like fucking fairground music because that's all we do.
Yeah,
And then something such as Terminator Salvation, in which the music is fine, but it's just like, why are you here? Sorry, why are you here?
Yeah.
You know, like
Well, a lot of sort of Zimmerman stuff is kind of not Zimmerman.
Zimmer.
I think of Jeremy Zimmerman.
Hans Zimmer. Who got the keys to my bimmer?
Probably
Hans
him.
Zimmer, yeah.
Or his driver, because he does very well for himself. Yeah,
He's German though, so probably would have a bimmer.
yes, that's true. Or an Audi or a Mercedes or a Porsche. Fucking hell. Yeah, well, Zimmer obviously is doing No Time to Die. Although again, it's sort of like when you put Hans Zimmer on something now, it doesn't necessarily mean he himself is doing it.
Yes, he's got this kind of, he's surrounded by his people. And I think it's unfair to Hans Zimmer that it is and it isn't, because he's very wealthy and successful, but that he became this kind of lazy choice as a composer, pretty much off of his work of Batman. It's kind of like, well, we should have Hans Zimmer.
Well, it was him and Nolan, wasn't it? There was that thing of like all of a sudden their names transcended whatever it was.
Yeah, because
So
Inception as well was
yeah.
You know.
Well, it's like just sticking Nolan on Man of Steel as a producer. It's like
Ugh.
I get a feeling with that as well. It's like he was probably sat around a lot of the time going, "Am I producing this?"
Yeah.
Because you know.
I didn't really feel like he had any kind of hands on him. Why would he? It's because they wanted.
He was on set though. I mean, there's shots of him on set talking to them and having ideas and doing stuff. But it's like I don't know.
There's probably shots of him on set looking at his banking app on his phone, because I fucking would be.
Yeah, true. Well, there we are. We've reached the end of the credits. We've semi-discussed this. Look, if you're in any way,
I love it straight into a caveat. Look,
yeah. Well, caveat. If you've been in any way frustrated by our lack of regurgitation of Wikipedia on this one, I'm sorry, but I think that is sort of
the internet's got you covered there. I like to think I've been as on balance this time as I can be.
Yeah, I mean, we can all talk about the trivia around this, but I just think that's quite redundant at this point. There you go. I still like it. I don't think there's nothing there that's. I think it's kind of locked now in my estimation. I think it is what it is. It's a time capsule in a lot of ways. It is style over substance, but that's not always a bad thing. And I think on balance, I like it. So there you go.
I don't. Hey, look, I've tried to be a bit more grown up about it this time, because the last time I recorded has A, been stricken from the internet, doesn't exist anymore, and B, I hadn't been on the internet very long, and I just thought what you're supposed to do is be a Doug Walker and just shout at everything.
It's a 49-51 thing, isn't it? Like we've said this ages ago. It's like, there's a few percent in it sometimes in a thing, and it's like that means you don't like it, you do like it. and that can be something quite innocuous that tips you one way or the other. And so there's nothing. Look, if you disagree with us, that's fine. Good for you. If you enjoy a thing, that's brilliant.
Please don't record a deeply scary video that seems like you're going to come over here and murder us.
But yeah, ideally.
Ideally.
Yeah. But there we are. I think we've just about shot the shit on that one. So thank you very much for joining us. Please obviously go to the description below. Check us out on Patreon. Check us out on all our Amazon.
Redbubble. I just put up a bunch of new T-shirts on Redbubble. New
Very
merch,
good.
not just T-shirts. You can buy a clock or a Perspex square with the artwork in
Over
it.
which to crouch. Place your loved ones under
glass
it.
coffee table in our new scat range.
There you go. But yes, please do go check us. It really does help us out. And keep enjoying this stuff. You can get these as MP3s to download to your phone and listen to offline if you become a $3 Patreon member. There is an archive of this stuff. And there you go. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon, probably for Batman Returns at some point.
Batman Returns, and we needed to do Batman and Robin eventually.
Yes. Forever is up, as you may or may not know. So go check that out. Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Support your 7th or 8th favourite YouTube channel by buying crap, tat, junk, hogwash and filth at redbubble.com/people/Val Verde Shop.